Pelican Bay was considered the worst of the worst. They gave me the keys to the yard. 7 inmates got murdered by the correctional officers. I've never mentioned this on these other interviews I've done. I'm tired of hiding it. After high school, I didn't really have a lot of direction. And unfortunately, I started going right down the path of like committing more serious crimes, like armed robberies.
Well, I mean, are these other kids in there? Like, are you a part of a gang? Like, I think of California and I think of gangs. Like, is it that you're a part of a gang or you're just hanging out with like other kind of thugs?
Yeah, so San Francisco's interesting, right? So I think the whole gang culture is very big in LA, right?
Yeah.
You think of gang culture and you think of LA. San Francisco, the Bay Area, although there's little pockets where there's gangs. Remember, this is the 80s and 90s. Where I grew up in San Francisco, there weren't many street gangs during my era. Especially like Mexican street gangs, right?
Oh, okay.
Mexican-American street gangs or Latino street gangs, right? But for me, I had friends that I grew up with, you know, we're always out partying, we're getting in street fights, we're getting in brawls. That was the kind of crowd I was with. And so I had these friends who were like, you know what, we're not working, none of us had a job. And we're like, well, how can we make some money? And I hooked up with a couple of my friends. And the next thing you know, we went on a string of doing all these home invasion robberies. So pretty much the entire summer of 1992, I was 19 years old. We did this whole string of home invasion robberies from like June all the way up until September when we got caught.
Can you explain like how the basic robberies are happening? You know, you said robberies. Like, I mean, are we talking about 3 guys with guns kicking in the front door of a house, or are we talking about jewelry stores? Is a smash and grab? Like, what's the average? I know they're all different, I'm sure, but what's the average robbery like?
The robberies we were doing, so I was basically like the muscle, right? I had the gun. I had a .380 that I'd borrowed from another friend. And my 2 partners, one would be literally tying up everybody in the house, and the third friend would be ransacking the house.
How do you know what houses?
So because during this time, remember, this is San Francisco, like in the early 90s. San Francisco has a very big like Asian Chinese community.
Yeah.
And during that time, the MO was a lot of home invasion robberies were going on during that time. Like that was a thing in that era. So my friends who were Asian, they're like, you know what? We're going to hit these different Chinese houses or Asian houses. So we would literally, like, for example, one of the ones we did, we would drive around early in the morning, like on a Friday, right? Or when I say early in the morning, it's like 8 or 9 o'clock, right? So 8 or 9 o'clock, people are leaving their garages. The garage doors are open. We might drive in a neighborhood and see somebody in front of their home with their car. The garage is open. We would literally walk up to somebody who's like standing in front of their home. I would put the gun on them and tell them to get into the garage. We would kind of scoot them into the garage, close the garage door, and go in their house that way.
Okay.
So that's the kind of stuff we were doing. We did kind of barge our way through on a couple of occasions on different robberies where we like push the doors open. But I think the easiest way to kind of get into a home during those years was just to catch somebody in their garage, the garage door open, or maybe in front of their home, and just kind of put the gun on them and take them upstairs. So that's what we were doing.
And then your 2 co-defendants, they run up and they tie everybody up in the house. They run through the house, tie everybody up.
Yeah, so initially when you go in the house, right, you want, obviously from a security standpoint, there might be somebody in another room. There might be somebody in the bathroom, right? And we've caught people like in bathtubs and shit like that, right? You might catch somebody in the bathroom. You might catch somebody in another bedroom. The first thing you do when you go into these homes is to make sure you get everybody in one room if there's more than one person in the house, right? Get everybody together, lay everybody down. My other partner would be zip tying people. He had zip ties. Zip tie everybody. Make sure we have everybody secure in a room. I would stand there the whole time with the gun, watching them, making sure they're not trying to do anything, while my other friend is literally, you know, looking for valuables, looking for cash, looking for jewelry, looking for watches. That's the type of stuff we're looking for.
Yeah, the zip tying makes it seem way more serious. You know what I'm saying? Like I mean, saying robbery is one thing. The zip moving people, that's like serious. Those are serious charges.
Yeah.
Not that robbery's not serious, but in general, it's different than running into a 7-Eleven and saying, "Give me the cat."
Yeah.
You know, it's so quick. But when you actually move, people don't realize when you move, ask someone or even instruct someone, even in a bank robbery. Like if you tell a teller, get back, get over there. Oh man, that's it. Like that, you just got
Kidnap.
hit with. Yeah, and that's so much more serious.
Yeah. So when we finally did get busted and they hit us with the indictment, we had kidnap charges, we had false imprisonment, we had armed robbery, burglary, interrupting phone lines, assault, gun charges, like everything racked up. You know what I mean?
Do you realize when you're doing it how serious? No,
I mean, I'm a 19-year-old kid. I never been in like real serious trouble before.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But yeah, just like you were saying, like if you move somebody 10 feet, that's kidnap.
Yeah.
If you hold somebody against their will, that's false imprisonment. And so, like I said, in the commission of all of these different things I was doing, I never for 1 second thought like, you know, I'm going to get hit with all these charges.
Yeah.
But yeah, once we finally did get arrested and they hit us with the indictment, all of these charges racked up. And yeah, I did have like kidnap and false imprisonment charges.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know that was a thing unless I'd been to prison. I remember meeting a guy who robbed a bank, and I remember he said, what got me so much time was telling the teller to back up 5 feet or something like that. Like I told her, get over there.
Yeah.
He's like, so I got hit with kidnapping. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And he went, yeah, I got hit with, I went, how's that kidnapping? He said, I if you instruct, and he explained it to me. I was like, holy shit. Like that's what went from, it went from like 4 or 5 years with a note. But when he said, he gave him the note, he said, back up, get over there. Boom. You went from a 5-year charge to a 15-year charge like that.
Yeah.
It was like, holy shit. Yeah, I would never have had any idea how serious it gets.
Yeah, and the whole kidnap thing, right? It typically it's like 10 feet, or if you're, God forbid, you're like moving somebody from one room to another, or you're moving somebody from the garage upstairs. I mean, those are all kidnap charges. Yeah. And so we probably did a total of about 7 to 8 different robberies during that time. And by the time we got arrested, we're sitting in the county jail. They hit us with like a 47 count indictment for everything that we did that summer. And from that point on, that's where my whole prison story and so on and so forth took off.
How did they grab you? I'm like, what?
Yeah. So what happened was leading up to that, you know, mind you, this is the summer of 1992, right? And I'm doing these robberies literally like every Friday, like clockwork with my friends. And you know, we're getting jewelry and we're getting, you know, different types of things during these robberies, right? So I'm 19 years old. I'm flashing jewelry to my sisters and like, hey, you want to see this jewelry? I was trying to sell jewelry to my sisters, right? Like a dumb kid, right? And so what happened was I was trying to sell jewelry to one of my sisters. She's like, what the hell are you doing? Where'd you get that from? She went back and told my father. So as I mentioned, growing up with my dad, the whole domestic violence thing, my dad actually got arrested right around that time or a little before that time. My mom put him in jail for domestic violence. So at that point, my dad was no longer in the picture. It was just my mom living at home I was living with my mom, some of my sisters, but my dad was gone now. And so my dad got wind of this from my sister. My dad was on probation, and my dad actually dropped a dime to his probation officer like, hey, I think my son's involved in doing some things.
Whoa.
And yeah. And sure enough, you know, there weren't any leads because we were doing all these robberies the entire summer. There weren't any leads. And so when they got this like MO of this one Mexican kid and potentially with 2 Asian kids, because my crimies were 2 Asian kids, right, that I grew up with. That's not like the normal crew you would see. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it sticks out. So what happened was one of the very last robberies we did on my way home, I'm sure when it was kind of a botched robbery, I'm sure the person we were trying to rob, the house we ran up in, I'm sure they got on the phone and called the cops immediately. And by the time I got home, within like 5 minutes of me being home, there was a knock on the door. It was SFPD. And I opened the door like a dumbass, you know, not knowing that they can, you know, they needed a search warrant. I opened the door, they grabbed me, threw me on the ground. My entire block where I grew up at in San Francisco on 4th Avenue in the Richmond district. that entire block was like shut down with police, right? It was like a crazy scene. And from that point on, I got arrested, and kind of the rest is history with that situation with all the robberies we were doing. Once I got arrested, the day that I did get arrested, the cops were waiting for me at home. My friends drove off, so they caught them like maybe 30 minutes later. And from that point on, we were sitting in the county jail for about an entire year fighting the case.
Well, what does your lawyer say?
Yeah, so I had a court-appointed attorney. I didn't have a paid attorney. And so keep in mind, I'm a 19-year-old kid. I didn't have any record, but I have all these serious charges, right? So basically, as we start getting into court and going to court, the first few months were like waving time. And it's crazy. They took us to a lineup before they indicted us, right? The reason they indicted us. So we were all wearing like masks when we were doing this stuff, right? I was actually like wearing a beanie with holes in it, and then I'd pull it down. And we were going into these places masked up, these houses masked up, right? Gloves, everything, right? So that's why we got away with so many for so long before we got caught. And the only reason we got caught is because, once again, my dad told on me and got us busted. But basically, the reason we got indicted is because they took us to a lineup. And when you go into a lineup, I don't know if you've ever been in a lineup, but you go on a big stage. The lights are on you, so you can't really see who's in the crowd too well. But when we went to this lineup, I probably seen like a crowd of at least 20 to 30 people, right? It's a lot of people. And, as soon as I got into the county jail, I changed my appearance right away. I shaved my head. I had like a big head of hair, right? So as soon as I got in, I shaved my head because I wanted to like change my appearance, right? And so when we went to this lineup, you're hoping somebody doesn't recognize you or point you out. But also during a lineup, they make you talk and say things, because keep in mind, when you're doing a robbery, you're yelling at somebody, hey, get on the ground, move over here, move over here. They can hear your voice. And for most people, if they're getting robbed and you're putting somebody through something that traumatic, they're going to remember possibly some of my mannerisms, my voice. So when we went to this lineup, they picked us out. They picked me out. They picked out my crimings. And within like a week or two, that's when they hit us with this 47 count indictment with all these charges.
My favorite story, by the way, is a defense attorney said one time. This is probably bullshit, but he was telling different stories, and he said one time one of his clients went into the lineup, and he's there with the victim and the district attorney and the cops, and they're standing there. And he said, but my guy had a mask on. He said, so they had like 5 people, and they said, and he's number 3. And the first person, they go, number 1, stand up. And he walks up, and they say, repeat this. He says, he reads the card. And it says, give me all the 10s and 20s, bitch. And the woman goes, no, that's not him. And then the next guy, number 2, he comes and he goes, give me all the 10s and 20s, bitch. She goes, no, that's not him. And then number 3 stands up, his client, he goes, that's not what I said.
Oh shit, that's crazy.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But what is your public defender telling you? Is he telling you you're looking at X amount of time?
Yeah. So after a few months, and like I said, we're going to court like every other month. And keep in mind, I'm 19. I just turned 20 now. So I got busted like literally like 11 days before my 20th birthday. And this is a San Francisco County jail, which obviously, there's a lot of different dynamics going on in the jail with, obviously there's the Mexican inmates, there's, potential gang stuff going on with the Mexican inmates, there's the blacks, there's the whites, the others. And so I'm getting a crash course on like jail politics and the way things are like right out the gate, you know what I mean? And so once again, we're going to court like every other month, we're waiving time. Finally, like around the 9th month, they start offering us deals, right? Like we're going to plea bargain.
Right.
So like around the 8th or 9th month, and also keep in mind the kidnap charge and like the false imprisonment charges, those are like the hardest charges, right? They actually dropped those. Those are like the first ones they dropped. Okay. So they offered us the first deal, or my first deal was like 25 years. I'm 20 years old, right? I'm like, that's not a deal, right? It's crazy.
You think that's the rest of my life?
Yeah, I'm already thinking like my life's over. You know what I mean? And then come back to court like a month later. Now they drop it down to like 15 years. I'm going to drop all these charges. We're going to run with this one or two. This is going to be your controlling case. And I'm like, oh, 15 years isn't a deal to me. You know what I mean? Came back about another month later, trying to offer us 12 years. Still, I'm like, in my mind, I'm a 20-year-old kid. I'm like, if I can get it down to like single digits, then, you know, I guess I'd take it if I have no choice, right? Because we're not going to trial. There's no way we're going to go to trial and get picked out or beat a jury. If we go to trial, we're going to get, 30 plus years. Yeah. There's no way we're going to win.
What are are you in the same pod as your co-defendants? And what are they saying?
Yeah, no. So they had us separated the entire time.
Is anybody cooperating?
Okay. That's a good thing. Nobody cooperated. We're all, keeping our mouths shut. And so keep in mind, I'm the one that got caught with the gun red-handed, whereas they, got singled out for other stuff. So some of my charges, like I had the gun charge, they didn't have gun charges, stuff like that,
So they're getting offered less.
Yes, correct. So finally, the last deal they offered us, and they're basically told us, my lawyer said, if you don't take this deal, they're going to make you go to trial.
Right.
So the last deal they offered me was 10 years, 4 months. They're going to give me 6 years for a first-degree robbery, and they're going to give me 4 years, 4 months for firearm. So that was going to be my controlling case. They dropped a bunch of stuff, and then I still had to plead out to a bunch of other charges, but my one controlling case was basically the robbery and then the gun. And then my co-defendants, one I think got like 8 years, and the other one got like 7 years. So we all got, a nice little chunk of time for being 20-year-old kids, you know. But yeah, so I got the most time because of the gun, and then I took 10 years and 4 months.
Well, how much time do you do on 10 years? I mean, if you don't lose any good time.
Yeah, so in the state of California during that time, you had half time. So I could have did like maybe 5 or 5.5 years. And I already spent a whole year in the county jail, so I already had a credit for time served of a year.
That's not even worth unpacking. That's so great. You go there, you start reading the Game of Thrones series, and keep yourself.
Yeah, but keep in mind this is California, right?
It's not Florida.
So off of the 10 years, 4 months, I ended up doing close to 8 years. Okay, but keep in mind, once again, California. Once I got sentenced, and I'm not gonna lie, the day I got sentenced, I remember I probably cried in the bullpen by myself, thinking my life was over. You know what I mean?
I cried like a small fucking child.
Yeah.
For hours.
Yeah.
It was uncontrollable.
Yeah, no, I remember crying that day when I took my deal and I pled out to everything, and they leave you in the holding tank and you're sitting there by yourself and you're like, my fucking life's over.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. I thought my life was over. You know what I mean? I was 20 years old.
And in California, where you're going to be sentenced, you're not a white-collar criminal.
Right.
You're not in the federal system where they're going to send you to a low or a camp, or even a medium, to be honest with you, in the federal system, is nothing compared to probably the low-security camps in the state of California. You're being sent with gun charges, violent charges, even though it's your first time, and the problem is you are young. So that's also going to up. People don't realize that ups your custody level because you're young. So you're going to go. You're probably going to a pen, right? And that can't be. And by this point, you've been locked up a year. You got to know what's waiting for you.
Yeah.
It ain't fucking good.
Right.
Like that, I would be fucking terrified.
Yeah. So that whole year I spent in the county jail, I started getting indoctrinated into like the gang stuff, right? And I wasn't a gangbanger on the street. I didn't grow up that way.
Right.
But when you get to jail or you get to prison, you kind of have to make a choice, right? Am I going to run with, a certain group of guys, or am I going to try to do my time on my own? If I try to do my time on my own, I'm probably going to run into my own set of problems, right? If I choose to kind of run with the gang, I'm still going to run into some type of problems, but now I have backup. You know what I mean? So once again, in the county jail during that year, I probably got in like 4 or 5 different fights. I started hanging around a certain groups of guys. So in California, in the jail system, the prison system, the Mexicans that are from Northern California, they call them Northerners or the Norteños. Yeah. Okay. Whereas in Southern California, you have the Southerners or the Sureños, right, which are enemies, especially during this era. So The first prison I went to when I got transferred out of the county jail, I went to San Quentin. So obviously San Quentin, I think a lot of people know San Quentin. It's like, one of the oldest prisons probably in the state or the country. And when I went to San Quentin, if you have more than 10 years, they put you in what's called Carson section. So there's a bunch of different sections. At that time, in that era, San Quentin was only a reception center, but they still had death row there. Death row is there. Obviously, that's a whole different animal. But then you have the reception center where basically people are going in and out. Basically, you're going in there from the county, and then you're getting shipped out somewhere, right, to where you're going to go do your time at. And then I think they also had like a really low level, maybe level 1 or level 2. In California, there's a level system, right? So there's level 1, 2, 3, and 4. Basically, level 4 is the highest maximum security. So right out the gate, when I went to San Quentin and you go through classification, they made me a level 3. So I was literally 1 point away from being a level 4. It's like a point system. Mm-hmm. And I think I had like 52 points, and I think a level 4 is 53 points. So all I had to do was get one write-up, and now I'm going to maximum security. You know what I mean? So in San Quentin, I was only there for about a month. Once again there, the indoctrination continues with the gang stuff, right? And now I'm like a full-on norteño, and I'm running with the norteños, and it's basically everybody from Northern California, like the Mexican Americans or Latinos from Northern California. So I was only in San Quentin for about a month. Nothing happened while I was there. It's just a reception center. There's no like enemies or anything going on. But then when I finally got transferred, I got transferred to a Southern California prison, which is a brand new prison in Imperial Valley, which is literally by the Mexican border, called Centinela. And so we were on the first bus from San Quentin to get shipped down to Centinela. And I'll never forget that day. It was like a 10, 13-hour bus ride. And you put on your belly chain, you put on your ankle bracelets, right? Mm-hmm. And you're sitting on a bus like this for 10, 13 hours. You got to eat like this. Thankfully, I didn't have to take a piss or go to the bathroom, because you kind of like try not to eat and drink because it's not the most comfortable situation. You know what I mean? And so from San Quentin, they took us all the way down to Centinela. And when I walked on the yard at Centinela, because you got to get off the bus and walk the yard and walk into one of the buildings, you can see everybody out there at night yard, right? And to me, all I saw was like a bunch of like cholo-looking, sureños from Southern California. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Everybody's all tat back. I was a young kid. I didn't have any tattoos or anything. And so you're checking out the yard. You're scoping out the yard, and they're checking you out too. Like, where'd you guys come from? And you tell them like, yeah, we just got here. We're from San Quentin. They know where you're from. So they're already eyeballing you. You know what I mean? Like, all right, these are some Northerners. We got to keep an eye on them. You know what I mean? And so I went to the reception, blocks that they have there, the buildings, and you stay in these buildings until you go to classification, right? And so in classification, they basically clear you, your general population, they clear you to go to the main yard. And so I already knew with some of the guys that I was on the bus with, they're like, this place doesn't look so good. We're probably going to have to get off and get out of here. You know what I mean? Like, get into a fight, stab somebody, start a riot, something. We need to get out of here, because if we stay here, we're just going to be like sitting ducks. You know what I mean? Like something's going to happen to us.
There's not enough norteños on the yard to feel safe?
Correct. Yeah. From a numbers standpoint, there's probably maybe like 10 to 12 of us, whereas it looked like there's maybe like 50 to 100 sureños on that yard, and it was a level 3 yard.
Okay.
So right out the gate, the game plan was I met this dude on the bus. His name was Weddle from Sacramento. He was my cellie. We ended up becoming cellies. He was an older guy. So I was kind of like taking his lead, right? Because he's been to prison a few times, and I'm kind of taking his lead. He has the experience. And so he's like, you know what? We need to get some knives. We need to get some pieces. We need to make some knives. And what we're going to do is...
all bad.
Yeah.
It's all bad.
Yeah. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make these knives and we're gonna go do a melee, and that's how we're gonna get off the yard and get out of here. You know what I mean? So probably we're on the yard maybe not even a week, like barely on the main line, and we don't have jobs, we're not going to school. Our program is literally we're in our building, we go to yard, and that's it. That's all we're doing, right? And so we found some other northerner guys that were working on the yard crew. And so they gave us some welding rods. Like, these are nice steel rods, right? These can be turned into some serious pieces, right? Mm-hmm. And so we got these welding rods, and the plan was we're gonna sharpen them, take them, come out to the yard, and find a group of Southerners and just rush them. That's what the plan was. And that's gonna basically get us sent to the hole and transfer to another prison up north. Because keep in mind, we're Sentinelas, Imperial Valleys, like from the yard, mm-hmm. when I ended up going to ADSEG to the hole, you can see the mountains, like the mountain range, and Mexico's right there.
Right.
So we're like, you can't get any further south than that. You know what I mean?
Are there cartel members locked up in this prison or no?
Not in that era. You know what I mean? This is already early 90s. And it's just, during this era in California, the governor was a guy named Pete Wilson. Okay, I don't know if you ever heard of Pete Wilson, but he was one of these very hard on crime governors, right wing, but his dad, I think, actually was murdered or something like that. So this guy just hated criminals. He was tough on crime. And so during that era in California in the 90s, not only was there a huge gang problem and a lot of crime, but they were building prisons all over the state. Okay, so that's kind of like the background of what California was during those years. But it wasn't like the cartels. I don't think they were like so prevalent as to, obviously the way things are now.
Well, I know in federal prison, there's a lot of the federal prisons in California are like stocked with cartel members.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's federal, so
yeah. In this day and time, I think it's like that, but not so much then. It was just very, very, it was very active with the gang stuff, right?
Okay.
Very, very active, right? Because you keep in mind, this was, the early 90s. Gang banging all over the state was like hardcore in those days.
And during the in the reception center, when they ask you, like, are you a gang member? Did you say, hey, yeah, I'm a norteño? And if so, then why would they send you to a place where they know is dominated by another gang?
So going back to San Quentin, right? When you go through classification, automatically, if you have like a Spanish surname, they're going to only sell you up with somebody, obviously, with the Spanish surname, and that's from your part of the state. They did ask me, I think, when I came in, and I did say I'm a northerner right out the gate. So that's in my jacket as soon as I come in. You know what I mean? So the thing about California during those years, they're opening all these new prisons. It's like wherever there was open bed space.
Okay.
So ideally,
your safety is not that big of a concern today.
I mean, even to this day and time, I don't know if you see all this stuff that's going on in California now. It's a total shit show, right? But back then, it's like, we're going to send you wherever there's open bed space. You know what I mean? And so they ended up sending me way down south. Yeah, of course, ideally, it would have been nice if they kept me somewhere in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. But they sent me somewhere, obviously next to Mexico. And there's already, a bunch of Southerners, because during those years, the Southern California reception centers, I think, were Wasco and Delano, which were like in Central California and like maybe Kern County. So all of the guys that got in trouble in Southern California, they got sent to either Wasco or Delano, which were the reception centers, and they got shipped out from there. Me, I went to San Quentin. But anyway, going back to, Sentinella, so we're making these knives now. We're going to make knives, and we're going to come out to the yard and do something. That's what the plan was. But before we could even try to execute something like that, we're barely in our block for like not even a week. And we got these rods, and we're literally sharpening them during a break between yard and our chow time. So during that time, you got like a couple hours to kill, right? Mm-hmm. We're in our cells, and we're literally sharpening during that time. And then one of the things we noticed, we heard a bunch of keys like in the coming through the block, like keys, like COs, right? Correctional officers. You heard all these keys rattling, and then the water in the building went off. So basically, all these COs were coming into the building to do a search. And sure enough, we were in the first cell on the bottom tier. And so they came straight to our cell. Keep in mind, we had just pulled up, right? So we don't have anything in our cell but bedding, and that's it. Like we don't own anything yet, right? We don't have like TVs or radios or anything like that, right? So they came straight to our cell, told us to come out. We had tucked the rods like in a little lunchbox. Back then, they used to give you lunchboxes, right? We tucked them in like a corner, try to hide them, but there's really nowhere to hide this stuff, right? So they pulled us out, searched our cell. The COs ended up finding the welding rods. They were like sharpened a little bit. They started having a little bit of a point. But, you know, once again, this is something that we were just starting to work on. So they ended up sending us to the hole, and we got basically busted for having contraband, which could have turned into an inmate manufactured weapon. And so we ended up staying in the hole for about 3 months. During that time, I'm in the hole, and once again, the whole indoctrination stuff continues. I'm learning all kinds of different stuff. I'm being groomed. I'm being schooled down. You know what I mean? On, you know, how to be a norteño and do things the norteño way. You know what I mean? And they gave me a DA referral. So the DA referral is basically they can, if you get busted in prison with, you know, whether it's an assault, a weapon, contraband, drugs, whatever, they give you a district attorney referral, and they can try to prosecute you and give you more charges. Okay? So here I am. Apparently I just turned 21, right? Now I'm 21. I got my first DA referral. I'm in my second prison. And thankfully the DA did not pick up the case, because it wasn't like we had a serious weapon. It was something that was being turned into a weapon. But since the DA shot it down, you still have to go through a little process within the prison. And they give you, in California, they give you what's called a SHU term. SHU stands for Security Housing Unit. So during that time, if anybody gets in trouble for contraband, assaults, fights, whatever, that are very serious, you can be given a SHU term and be sent to a different prison where you're going to be around other people that have been in more serious trouble. So that's the road that I was on.
So is that, where did you go?
So they gave me a 10-month SHU term. And from that point on, they're going to transfer me to the Corcoran SHU. The Corcoran SHU during this era was already under FBI investigation. You can Google it. During this time in Corcoran, they had what's called the gladiator fights going on.
Oh, is this where they had the controlled doors, and they would let two rival guys into the same thing, lock it up, and they just let them fight, and the guys would like bet on it?
So that's where I was at. That's where they sent me. So this is 1993. I'm on my way to the Corcoran SHU. You know, up to this point, I've heard all these stories about Corcoran, right? But now I'm on my way. And so Corcoran is like Central California. It's probably like a 6 or 7 hour bus ride from Centinela up to Central California. So Corcoran was in Kings County, which is right by Fresno County. So now I'm like considered more Northern California where I'm at. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to get the hell out of being in Southern California. You know what I mean? Obviously, I didn't want to get caught with contraband in my cell, but that's what happened.
Right.
You know what I mean? So anyway, on our way to Corcoran with a bunch of guys that are basically caught SHU terms. So I'm in a bus full of people that have been in serious trouble in the prison and other prisons, because we stopped at a couple places along the way and picked up more people. So by the time we got to Corcoran, it's probably like, 6 or 7 at night, and we pull up to the prison, and there's a welcoming committee of about like 50 COs, correctional officers, right? I'll never forget, because one by one, they're pulling us off the bus. They'll call somebody's name, Smith, Johnson, whoever. The first person that walks off the bus, they get snatched up, ran down, and you can't really run because you got the ankle chains on, right? Basically, you're getting roughed up, ran, slammed against the wall. I see people smacking their face against the wall, the concrete walls, and that's your introduction to Corcoran. Like they're letting you know, the COs are letting you know you're in our prison now.
Right.
You know what I mean? And obviously you're here for a reason, so we're going to treat you a certain way. You know what I mean? So one by one, I'm seeing all these guys get off the bus and they're getting basically manhandled, ran down, slammed against the wall. You're seeing guys hit the wall, faces hitting the wall. So I see all these guys getting slammed against the wall. I said, okay, when it's my time, I'm going to stick out my chest, right? Because I don't want to, like, I got to break that impact.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when it finally got to me, I was kind of towards the end. They snatched me up off the bus, ran me down, tried to, manhandle me. I stuck out my chest. I didn't hit my face on the concrete. And welcome to Corcoran. That's our introduction. You know what I mean? To basically let us know, like, we're running shit here. This is how we do things here. You know what I mean?
Do you go straight into the chute there?
Yeah. So this is another prison, and the blocks are smaller, right? So like on the main line, you have these big buildings that probably fit like maybe 100 inmates, right? In the shoe, we're in little blocks that are only gonna fit like maybe I think in Corcoran they had 10 cells on the bottom, 10 cells on the top. So these are small little buildings, right? They're blocks, and so there's at Corcoran, they also have a main line there, but during this era, the Corcoran SHU had the SHU, and they also had what was called the PHU, which was the protective housing units. And that's where Charles Manson was at during this time. Sirhan was there. I think he killed one of the Kennedys, I think.
Sirhan?
Yeah.
Robert Kennedy. He's the one that shot Robert Kennedy.
So these are the kind of people that were at Corcoran when I was there, but they're in the PHU.
And I'm watching documentaries right now. On the way here, I was listening to a documentary on Charles Manson.
Yeah.
It's a little weird.
So I'll tell you my Charles Manson story in a minute.
Oh, nice.
So I'm in the court. So basically, when you pull up to the Corcoran SHU, they do all that stuff on the bus, get us off the bus, and then right out the gate, they take us to our different blocks, right? Everybody's going to different blocks, right? And so when you go to your blocks, they sent me to like a cell. I was by myself, like the first night I was there. They sent me to a block, and I walk in, and by this time it's late. It's already like 9, 10 o'clock at night. Lights are out. But anytime the block opens, like you mentioned with these electronic doors, when somebody walks in, you got a new guy on the block. You know what I mean? So when I walk into my block, they keep you cuffed the whole time, right? They're not letting you walk freely. So they're cuffing you behind the back. And when you go to the block, you got to stick your hands out the tray. They unlock you, and then from that point on, you walk to your cell. And now I'm in a block. I think at that time there's 10 cells on the top, 10 cells on the bottom. Everybody there already had like cellies, but because I just pulled up and it was so late at night, I went into a cell by myself. And as soon as I got into my cell, closed the door, I could hear people upstairs like, hey, homie, where you from? They want to know who I am, where'd I come from, who are you? You know what I mean? And I remember when I pulled up, there's some guys upstairs and they're like, hey, homie, where you from? And I say, I'm from up north. And then right after I say I'm up from up north, there's just silence. You know what I mean?
That was like the wrong answer.
Exactly. That wasn't the answer they were looking for. You know what I mean? And so there was just silence. And then after that, nobody else tried to talk to me that night, right? So it's late though. It's already 10 o'clock. Nobody's going anywhere that night. And so, I go to sleep.
If you sleep hot at night, you know how disruptive that can be. When you're not resting well, everything else feels harder. Your focus, your mood, even your recovery. GhostBed is here to help you fix that. They've spent decades perfecting how to build a bed that's comfortable, durable, and designed to actually help you rest. Every GhostBed mattress features premier materials, proven cooling technology, and their exclusive ProCore layer, a targeted support system that reinforces the center of the mattress where the body is heaviest. It helps keep your spine aligned and your back supported, so you can wake up ready for anything 2026 throws at you. Each mattress comes with a 101 night sleep trial and a 20 to 25 year warranty, so you can try it risk-free, knowing it's built to last. Shipping is fast and free. Most orders arrive in 2 to 5 days. GhostBed has great prices to begin with, up to 50% off comparable brands. And Inside True Crime listeners can get an extra 10% off site-wide for a limited time. Just go to ghostbed.com/Cox and use promo code Cox at checkout. That's ghostbed.com/Cox, promo code Cox. Upgrade your sleep with Ghostbed, the makers of the coolest bed in the world. Some exclusions apply. See site for details.
First thing in the morning, they feed us in our cells. They're not mixing anybody, right? And remember, I still got to go to classification. So I'm in my cell early in the morning. I eat. And then now it's probably like around 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and there's some movement, right? People are like going to medical, or people are going to the law library, stuff like that. So somebody runs down in my cell, and this guy's like, "Hey, what's up, homie?" And I'm from San Jose. So some guy came down and got at me like, "Hey, I'm from Northern California too. Where'd you get here from? Hey, keep your eyes open, be ready. It's on here." So he's telling me right out the gate, it's on, meaning if the door pops, if there's an enemy on the tier, you have to engage with them. You know what I mean? So that's my literally good morning, second day. This is what I'm being told. You know what I mean? So I stayed in that block for maybe a couple of days, and then I went to classification. After I went to classification, they cleared me for integrated yard. So keep in mind, the integrated yard is where all these fights are happening, right? So they moved me to another block. And once again, I walk into a cell by myself, but I can tell someone's living in this cell. Mm-hmm. So the way that I've been already schooled down and trained, when you walk into somebody's cell, you have no idea whose cell you're walking into. So for me, the correct thing to do is just kind of like not get too comfortable, kind of like, be ready, because as soon as this guy comes into the cell, I might have to engage and get into a cell fight right out the gate. You know what I mean? Because I don't know whose cell this is, right? So for me, I'm sitting there, not even like an hour. I'm waiting to see who my cellie is, right? Because he's obviously not around. So I seen this guy come into the block. He's walking to the cell. I guess he was at the law library, right? So he was, going to the law library just to get out of his cell. And so he comes up to the cell, and we start talking, just filling each other out. And I can tell, all right, this guy's cool, right? Mm-hmm. I remember his name. I remember his real name, but I'll call him Rabbit. From Santa Rosa. He was from Santa Rosa, which is like 50 miles north of San Francisco. So this is my cellie. And the first question he asked me is, did you get cleared for integrated yard? And I'm like, yeah, I got cleared. He's like, all right, so we got yard tomorrow. When we go to yard tomorrow, we got to rush our neighbors. So,
man, listen, I just got here.
That's the way it was, right? So basically, it's war. It's Corcoran Shoes war. It's all war. There's no peace treaties going on. So in this era, 1993, 1994, the Northerners and the Blacks are basically together. They're allies against the Southerners and the whites. That's how it was. So now I was on the top tier in the first cell. So my introduction to the Corcoran Shoe, keep in mind, I've probably been there about a week now. They've been going to the yard for my very first time. So they let you go to yard like maybe, I think it was 2 or 3 times a week, like on different days, right? You're in the shoe. So in the shoe, it's like the hole, but kind of on steroids, where you have, your canteen's limited, your commissary's limited, you shower maybe 3 days a week. You go to yard 2 or 3 days a week, and that's it. That's all your movement, unless you're going to medical or unless you're going to law library, and that's it. So my cellie, once again, he's like, we're going to go to yard tomorrow. Our neighbors are, these white dudes, we're going to rush them. And I'm like, okay, I'm just like going with the flow. That's what we got to do. You know what I mean?
But you have no weapons.
No weapons. So these are like mostly like all fist fights, right? But when you go to the yard, they let our cell out first, right? We'll go down, cuff us up, walk us out to the yard, which is a different area. There's a sally port, right? The sally port goes from our block to the yard. And keep in mind, these are small yards. These aren't like a big mainline yard, right? Mm. These yards are maybe, they're kind of shaped like a V, right? And so it's when you walk out, it's narrow and then it opens up. And
so this is like 20 foot by like 80 feet?
Exactly.
Or 60 feet?
20 by 60.
Is it the concrete walls?
Yeah, exactly.
And the barbed wire?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like 20 by 60. So typically if you went out there, you could play handball and that's it, and maybe work out and that's it. But so anyway, we went out to the yard. We were the first ones out there, and my celly's like, all right, when we get out there, we're gonna stand at the back of the wall away from the gun tower, right? Because the gun tower is right there, right? And so back in those days, they shoot the block gun first. A block gun is basically like it shoots
like a beanbag, or
but they're blocks, kind of like a beanbag, but they're blocks, yeah. And they
like
shoot
a wood, wood,
exactly. And it shoots out like 10 blocks at a time. So we go out there, and so that's the warning shot. And if you guys keep fighting, and it looks like somebody's gonna like really get hurt, or somebody's getting hurt or maimed or even killed, they pull out the real gun, which back in those days they used what's called a Mini 14. And so the whole thing about Corcoran during this era, they were killing inmates.
Yeah.
I think during this time about 7 inmates got murdered by the correctional officers, by the gun tower, because people are fighting and they won't stop. And back then they would just shoot like, I think now they don't shoot as quickly. They don't shoot as quickly, right? Because you see people getting killed all over California right now, right? But back in those days, they were trigger happy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So anyway, we're outside in the yard with the back wall, posted up, ready, and we're wearing T-shirts and our boxers. That's all we got, right? It's not like we have any clothes, right? And so the guys, the 2 white dudes walk out, and these are like big white dudes, right? These guys are both like 6 foot plus, right? So you got 2 shorter Mexican dudes that are going to go rush these big white dudes, right? And that's what happened. As soon as they came out, they knew what time it was. As soon as they came out, we kind of like wait for them to like walk a little bit towards the back of the wall, and then we just rush them. And it's basically a 2-on-2 fight. It happens really quick. You maybe have like 5 or 10 seconds to throw hands. And then at that time, the gun tower is like, get down, get down. And if you don't get down, you keep fighting, you stay engaged, they'll shoot the block gun. And then when they shoot the block gun, they'll tell you, get down some more. And typically at that point, we would back off and get on the ground face first. If we were to keep fighting, that's when they pull out the real gun.
So are you getting shot with the blocks?
Yeah.
So
So the very first time that fight, I actually got hit with the block gun the very first time I went out there.
How's that feel?
I mean, it's like a little stinger, you know what I mean? Like
I would have thought it would.
Yeah, I actually remember, like I literally had a scar on my body for like 10 or 15 years. Like it's a little, it grazed.
It doesn't sound like a little.
Yeah, but it stayed on my body for like 10 or 15 years. And I remember I'd go look in the mirror and like, okay, I think it finally went away. You know what I mean?
Is it hard enough to knock you down? Or
I mean, if it hits you in the head, if it hits you in the face, you're going to be fucked up, right? For me, it hit me in the back.
This is horrible.
Yeah. I mean, guys probably get concussed if it hit him in the head.
Right.
You know what I mean? If it hits you in the face, he could hit your eye out, could take your eye out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it hits you in the head, you definitely probably getting a concussion. You know what I mean? Or worse.
So they fire the gun. Do you guys stop?
Yeah. So they fire the block gun, and then we back off from each other, and we get on the ground. And they put the yard down. So we're not even on the yard. So that yard for the day is over. Everybody else that was on the top tier does not have yard because of what we did.
Right.
Because we were the first 2 cells out there. So for the rest of the day, the top tier, they don't get yard anymore. You know what I mean? And so,
but they would have done the same thing, right?
Exactly.
This is standard.
Exactly.
Okay.
This is standard protocol. It's war. It's on site, and that's just the way. It's everybody's a green light on everybody. It's war. So that's just the way the program was there. You know what I mean? So, once again, we're on the ground. The COs come onto the yard, cuff us up, take us out, give us write-ups, and then, nobody got seriously hurt, and they just send you back to your cell. And that's my welcome to Corcoran first yard.
Do you lose game time for that?
Yeah, so each write-up you get, my points are going higher. You got to go to like a little classification hearing. They find you guilty of whatever you did.
Yeah.
And then they rack up your points, and you're losing good time.
So is it typically like 20 days?
I think it was like 90 days.
90?
90 days, yeah. So every write-up, I think, back in those days was like 90 days. 90 days, even some cases, maybe even more, depending on what you did. But that's at Corcoran. That's where I started racking up all my points. And then also, too, that's where I started getting all these write-ups that then increased my points, and then also, too, took a lot of time away from me.
Colby's just like,
I'm just like thinking, like, is there any difference? What's the difference, like, between the Northern and the Southerners? There's no difference.
Yeah, is there a reason that this is happening?
It's just alliance.
So let me give you the background on the North and South. So you probably heard of La M, the Mexican Mafia.
I mean, I've heard the Mexican Mafia.
Yeah.
What'd you call it?
La M. That means just M in Spanish.
Okay.
La M, right? So a little background on why are the North and South fighting? Why are they been at each other's throats for now since the 50s and 60s? Okay, this is a long time. Okay, so the Mexican Mafia was like one of the first prison gangs in the state of California. So the original prison gangs in the state of California, you had the Mexican Mafia, you had the Aryan Brotherhood, and you had the Black Guerrilla Family, which were the BGF, AB, and Lime. This is like I'm not sure when the AB and BGF came along, but La M came around in the mid 50s. Okay, and the La M back then wasn't like Southern California based. They had some guys from Northern California that were the originators, but as time went on, as years went on, they basically became like the parent to the Southerners. Okay, but originally when they first were put together, you had some guys from Northern California that were actually in La M, right? And so years later in the 60s, and, you know, this is, you know, gang culture. People are feeling oppressed. They have something that they call the shoe wars, where I think they're saying somebody that was in La M took somebody's shoes.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, I actually thought that was what the Crips and the Bloods. I was going to say, aren't the Crips and the Bloods in the issue with them? Like someone stole someone's shoes or didn't pay him for them, but I guess you're saying it's...
Yeah, so that was actually between the Mexicans, right? So apparently the story goes, they call it the shoe wars, where somebody from, you know, the Mexican Mafia took somebody's shoes. And obviously you take somebody's shoes.
No, I know. It's funny, like out here, it seems silly or something that's not worth going to war over, or even, you know, well, maybe I get into a fight over it, but in prison, it's like
you don't take.
It doesn't matter if it's your fucking comb.
Yeah, in prison and in jail,
you can't take something from me.
Yeah, you can't take anything from anybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I can honestly say that the time that I did, my entire time in prison, nobody ever took anything from me or tried to take anything from me. If somebody would have tried to take my lunch from me, like, you know, like you see people like, you know, getting punked for their food and stuff like that. I mean. Anyway, so with the whole shoe thing, somebody supposedly, you know, got their shoes taken, and then from that point on, that birthed a new gang, which was the NF, La Nuestra Familia, which also had Southern California elements to it originally as well, but as time progressed, became the Northern parents, and the Mexican Mafia were like the Southern parents. So this is talking about the 1960s. Here we are today. It's 2026. I hear today there's actually I don't want to call it a peace treaty, but they have it where they're not fighting anymore in prison. That's what I hear. In the streets, it's a little bit different, but you have basically Mexicans from Southern California, Mexicans from Northern California fighting at each other's throats since the 60s over a pair of shoes.
Let's say you go into prison with no affiliation and you're right on the line. You're center California. Do you just have...
Can you just be like, hey, I'm not interested in being a part of this?
So what's funny is in Central California is Fresno. So Fresno used to be like the dividing line, right? And so in Fresno, for many, many years, people from Fresno, the Mexicans from Fresno, they were considered norteños too, right? But years later, Fresno turned into the Fresno Bulldogs, like the university, Fresno State. So now you have the North, the South, and the Fresno Bulldogs are like the three different main gangs in the California prison system that are Mexican.
So what if you went in and you had said, I'm just not interested in being affiliated with anything. Like I wasn't on the street.
So if you're a level 1 or a level 2, like maybe you're in a camp or like on a ranch,
that'll fly.
You could probably make that fly. But in my case, number one, I made that decision early on that I was going to run with these guys. And after the Corcoran shoe, I was already a level 4. And in maximum security prison in California, the politics are very heavy.
So what would happen if you did say I'm not interested? Then you'd just be what? You're just basically a victim.
I'm basically like an outcast, and anybody can try to come at me, whether it's blacks, whites.
Nobody's helping you.
Yeah, and I'm on my own. I'm going to stand on my own. And honestly, I never seen that. Like I was never like on a main line years later and be like, oh, you see that dude over there? He just rolls by himself. No, I never saw one dude that just rolls by himself. It wasn't like that. It's like when you're on a level 4 yard, you're riding with one of the factions. I never just seen like those 5 dudes over there. They're the outcasts. They do their own thing. No, it wasn't like that.
So at this point, how long do you stay in the shoe until you go? Do you go to general population?
So I was in the Corcoran shoe. Remember they gave me a 10-month shoe term. So that was like my term. I was supposed to stay there for 10 months. Mind you, those 10 months, I probably got into about 4 or 5 yard fights. So got into fights with whites, got into fights with Southerners, got into fights with even a border brother. I haven't even mentioned the border brothers yet. The border brothers were, back in those days, were like the Mexicans from Mexico.
Okay.
They're not California-based Mexican Americans. The border brothers back in those days were from Mexico. And keep in mind, and you asked kind of like about the cartel thing. I wouldn't say these guys are cartel, but they're probably like trafficking stuff in the 90s. But we called them border brothers back in those days. And they were just on their own. They kind of sympathized probably more with the Southerners versus the Northerners. But they were, once again, there was enough of them where they did their own thing too in those years.
Okay, so you do your 10 months and you go to general population?
So right before my 10-month shoe term was up, they put another Sureño on our yard.
Okay.
And I was still with my celly, this guy Rabbit, right? I was still with my celly. And he was getting close to going home though, because he'd been sitting in the shoe now for probably like beyond 20 months already. He'd already been in the shoe for a long time, right? He pretty much did all of his time in the shoe, and then he was going to go home. So I'm like 21 years old at the time. And he's like, hey, they got this one Southerner on the yard. Instead of both of us rushing him, can you just take him? Because I'm going to be going home soon. I'm trying to go home.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, sure, no problem. Like, that's just, I'm very gung-ho. I'm like, I'm down to do whatever. That's just my mindset was during these years. You know what I mean? So I go out to the yard. Mind you, my 10-month shoe term's up in about a month. I go out to the yard, and there's one Southerner. I go out to the yard, and I basically attack him. I rush him. I beat him up pretty good, where they gave me another charge. They gave me a GBI, great bodily injury. And so now they're giving me another DA referral for great bodily injury, because they're saying like I broke his nose or something, right? Mm-hmm. And now got another DA referral. And now, instead of being out of the shoe in 10 months, it's dragging on for a couple more months to see if the DA is going to pick it up. The DA didn't pick it up, thankfully, but now they gave me another 18-month shoe term. So from that point, they're like, you've gotten enough trouble here. We're going to send you to Pelican Bay, which at that time, Pelican Bay in the mid-90s, it just opened up. I think it opened in 89, I think. But Pelican Bay was considered like the worst of the worst in California. So I graduated from the Corcoran shoe to the Pelican Bay shoe. And around like the 11th or 12th month while I was at Corcoran, they transferred me to Pelican Bay, and I was going to go to the shoe up there. So when you go to Pelican Bay, it's a completely different setup. It's no war. So the politics are different. I go to the Pelican Bay shoe. The yards are different. You only go to yard with your celly. These yards are tiny, right? So the yards in Pelican Bay are probably like 12 by 24. They're tiny. It's like, and the walls are tall, like 20-foot walls. They have like a metal gate, metal mesh on the roof. So keep in mind, Pelican Bay's in Crescent City, California, which is what now you're like by the Oregon border. So the climate up there is like rains like 7 months out the year. So the weather up there sucks, right? I went from 110-degree heat in Corcoran to rain pretty much year round, or just like cold weather year round, And so I'm in the Pelican Bay shoe. When I get into the shoe, my cellie there was a guy from Fresno, actually, but he was like an OG. So he wasn't with the Bulldog. He wasn't with the Bulldog stuff. He was, considered a norteño. I was in a pod with a couple of NF members. So I was in a pod with a couple of, well-known, big reputation type of guys. And, I'm a 21-year-old kid now. You know what I mean? And so we're in the pods up there in Pelican Bay. There's only 5 cells on the bottom, 5 cells on the top. So they're very, very small units. There's no windows in your cell. You can't look out at anything. You're basically stuck in a box. You're stuck in your cell. You can go to yard every day for 1 hour, but it's not really a yard. It's just basically like a little walk area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you go out there to get some fresh air because you're stuck in your cell all day.
If it's not raining.
Exactly. And then if it is raining, you find a little corner to just stand in that's not getting hit with the rain.
Right.
Yeah, like literally that's what you do, right? You go into a little spot and you just stand right there and you see how the rain coming down, right? But that's how it was. So I ended up going to Pelican Bay. I stayed in the shoe there. So I think there, because I didn't have any contact with anybody, instead of me doing the entire 18 months, I think I did like 10 months. And then from that point, they kicked me out to the main line.
Okay.
So
you get a new cellie.
So
a new cell.
Going to the main line, but now keep in mind, this is Pelican Bay, 1995. And everybody in Pelican Bay is doing like life, or, they have a lot of time. Mm-hmm. So, and the politics are very, very heavy, right? So you're surrounded by killers up there. You know what I mean? And I get kicked out to the main line. When I went out to the main line, I was like super pale. You know what I mean? Because you've been stuck inside for so long, right? I'm like super pale. I had a bald head back in those days. You know what I mean? And I go out to the main line. I think initially I went out to B facility, and I was only on B facility for like a couple of weeks. I went to classification. There's no wars. There's nothing going on. The segments are, you have the Sureños, you got the Norteños, you got the different white factions, you have the different black factions. So different white factions, you have like AB, you have the Nazi lowriders, you have skinheads. Those are like the different white factions. And then the black factions are the Bloods, the Crips, and the 415s, like the blacks from the Bay Area. So you're on a yard now with people that are considered like the worst of the worst, all on the main line. And everybody has their own little real estate on the yard. People have different tables. People have handball courts. The blacks are on the basketball courts. Back then, we actually had weights. And then I think Pete Wilson took the weights away. The governor, they took the weights away, I think in 95 or 96. And then that was a big thing when they took the weights away from the inmates. That was a big thing. But I was on that B facility for like a couple weeks. And then they ended up moving me to A facility. And from that point on, I got with all the Norteños over there. There's probably like 20 or 30 of us on that yard. And it was good for like about a year or two. I was programming. I had a job. I was working in vocational eyewear. And I think I might have even been in PI. They had a PIA class, prison industry, where you're like making glasses. You're making shades. That's why
right.
I've always had like a thing for shades, right? So keep in mind, when you're working or you have a job, you're not on the yard all day. It's when you're on the yard where bad shit can happen.
Right.
Right. So I was in eyewear, vocational eyewear. You know, I would get up early in the morning. You know, I'd go to chow, go to work, and I'm gone all day behind the wall because it was behind you're technically on a level 4 yard. You're behind the wall, but now when you go to vocation, they actually escort you and let you go outside the wall. So that was kind of a big deal, right? And so anyway, I was in Pelican Bay on the main line A facility for a couple of years. Towards the end of 1996, there was a big riot that jumped off on the yard between the Southerns and the Blacks. And I was actually on the yard that day when it happened. Since we're not involved, we basically just get out of the way and obviously keep an eye on each other. But this is a riot that was like, you know, maybe 100 people. So, you know, shots were fired on the yard. People are getting stabbed. People are fighting. You know, this went on for, you know, 15, 20 minutes. It's a riot. You know what I mean? Like you look at videos online, there's all kinds of stuff you'll see on social media, obviously now it's stuff that happened back then and even recent stuff, right? But you know, when that happens, you just really got to get out of the way. And so we got out of the way, nothing happened with us. The big riot happened between the Blacks and the Southerners. And then from that point on, they were locked down for months. So during that time period, the only people that were allowed to go to the main yard were the Northerners, the whites, and the others. The others are, you know, like Asians, Filipinos, Samoans, whatever. That's like their own little segment, right? They're not really affiliated. They're not politically involved with anything. They're really separated and they do their own thing, right? So anyway, during that time period, since the Blacks and the Southerners were at war, each time they let them out to maybe come out to the yard, another incident would occur. And they wouldn't just let out the entire yard. They would let out maybe one block here, one block to just test the waters. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they go out, they would fight. So they'd lock them down again. You know what I mean? So during that time period where the only people on the yard are the Northerners and the whites and the others, there starts coming up some words start coming up that maybe the whites are going to try to rush the Northerns because it's a war going on, right? And anyway, keep in mind, we're going to yard all the time, right? I remember up there at Pelican Bay, since there's so much rain, we had mandatory yard. Like I couldn't wake up one day and just tell my cellier and my homies, like, I'm not going to yard today. It wasn't like that. Like we had mandatory yard every day, rain or shine. So if it was 50 degrees outside and a rainstorm, we put on our raincoat, we put on our rain hat, and we had to have our presence on the yard. That was mandatory for how we functioned as a group. You know what I mean? So that's just how it was. So as time went on, now it's like maybe early 1997. There's one day on the yard. It had to be the weekend because I wasn't at work that day. So the way our program was on the yard, we had certain tables that we would always go to as soon as we come out at yard, and we would like set up, and we would put security on our tables where we would have guys standing on corners of the tables to make sure nobody would try to like infiltrate us. You know what I mean? That's the seriousness of how we ran our program. Very militant, how we kind of posted up every single day. And so one day I'm on the yard, and we would also have people walking the track, keeping security, keeping an eye on everything that's going on in the yard. And I remember I'm walking around the track on the lower yard. There's a lower yard and an upper yard. And there's a gate in between them and the yards, right? So you can go back and forth. And I'm on the lower yard. This is the main line. I'm walking around the track with like, 2 or 3 other homies. We're doing security. And you see a wave of the whites running up to, they start like their approach. They're like about 20, 30 of them. You see them approaching, like you see it like happening from across the yard. And you can see the whites rushing towards where the Northerners are at. So when we see them we see them making a move, we start running across the grass of the yard from where we were at. And so by the time we got over there, it was a melee going on. It was a little mini riot going on where there's like maybe 20 or 30 whites, maybe 10 Northerners. I'm running across the yard with my other homies. Back in those days, we used to always carry a razor in our mouth, right? Every time we're at the yard, we always keep a razor in our mouth. So pull out the razor, and you're just trying to hit anybody. You know what I mean? Whether you're throwing hands or you're hitting somebody with the razor, I was able to hit somebody, got rid of the weapon, we're fighting, and it's a melee or a riot, so it's stick and move, right? You're not just standing there hitting one dude, you're hitting one dude, you're moving, and it's chaos. There's like 30, 40 people going at it. The gunner's saying, get down, get down. They didn't shoot any live rounds that incident. We all got on the ground. Keep in mind, ADSEG in the hole was already packed because of the blacks and the Southerners. So they let a bunch of us go back to our cells that day. And so now the whole yard is locked down. The only people that are allowed to go to the main yard are the others during that time because the blacks and the Southerns were already locked down. And now a new war jumped off between the Northerns and the whites. So we're on lockdown for a couple months. Keep in mind, I got out of the SHU, I think, in like May of 95. I was on the main line for about almost 2 years. So now we're already like almost the middle of 97. And during that lockdown, one, I got away with being involved in that riot. I didn't go to the hole. But two, I went to classification. Every year you go to classification. I put up for a transfer during lockdown. Mm-hmm. And so I had put in a transfer. They're going to transfer me to New Folsom, which is in Sacramento, which is like 2 hours away from San Francisco. During that lockdown where all these wars are going on, I got a transfer. And I skated out of Pelican Bay. I literally skated out of a war, and I got transferred to another place.
How was that? Is that a lower custody?
No, New Folsom is still level 4. And New Folsom has their own history too. But when I got to New Folsom, I ended up on a yard. I think they call it C yard, C facility. I got to this yard, and now that was like our stronghold. I was actually on a yard where there was like maybe 40 or 50 Northerns. There's the white factions, there's the black factions. The Southerners, there weren't really any Southerners on that yard. So there were a few Southerners on that yard, but they weren't considered like active Southerns. The Southerns at that time, if they went to C yard, they were told to basically get off that yard. You know what I mean? So there is a small group of them, but I think these guys are like hiding. They didn't want to be active. You know what I mean? So they weren't a threat to us. They weren't like active Sureños, right? So they just had their little part of the yard. They didn't come near us. But so I got to New Folsom, and here I am. I got a job right away because I had a job at the other place at Pelican Bay. I was working in the laundry room, making a whopping 30 cents an hour.
Nice.
I was balling. Yeah, right. And by now it's like 1997. By this time, I'm like 25 years old now, already been doing time for a little bit. And I start thinking differently. I'm maturing.
Maybe this isn't working out. Maybe this isn't the life for me. Maybe stabbing guys and having the potential of getting stabbed or killed or...
I actually had like a little light bulb moment when I was in Pelican Bay, right?
Right.
And I think it was probably during the lockdown. And I'm like, at the end of the day, right? I didn't go to prison so I can, get maxed out and never go home or catch more time. Obviously,
you're just a little kid. You're fucking 19 years old. You can't be in a position to make major decisions and have it follow you for the rest of your life. Right. So sorry, I'm also thinking about the Supreme Court where these kids are like, you're 18 years old and you do something horrific and then they never have the possibility to get out of prison. It's like, he's 18. I get it. What he did was horrible, but he's 18.
Yeah, for sure. And so, like I said, I think I had a little light bulb moment in Pelican Bay, and I'm like, do I want to keep going down this road or do I want to do something different? So I kind of when I left Pelican Bay, I already had like the mentality that hopefully I can go to New Folsom and just do my time, right? And, you know, hopefully get out. Because now I didn't have really a date. Keep in mind, I'd lost all this time at Corcoran.
Mm-hmm.
I got some of it back on Pelican Bay on the main line because for a very long time, nothing was happening. But, you know, I was hoping to get out. And remember, this is the mid-'90s. I was hoping to get out by 2000, you know, which was like a big deal in those days. Like, you know, I think they had the Y2K thing, right? Yeah. So there's like all this like talk of like maybe the world changing in 2000. Obviously nothing happened, right? But that's the hysteria that the whole Y2K thing brought, that if you remember those days, right?
Yeah, we worried about all the power plants going offline, and things shutting down, and do you remember this?
No, I mean I was in kindergarten. Maybe. Yeah.
Well, because their issue was that all the software that's running everything isn't based on like 4 digits. Like a lot of it was based on like 2 digits, right? Like, you know, 91, 92. And they're like, what happens when it hits 99 and flips? Everybody's like, oh, everything's going to shut down. And it didn't really shut down. Nothing really happened.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So my whole thing was hopefully getting out before 2000. It was already 1997. And I was already like 5 years in and doing my time, right? So if I didn't get into all this trouble that I got into initially when I went to prison, you know, I would have been getting out like in 6 months or like a year, right? I was supposed to get out in like 98, right? That didn't happen. So when I got to New Folsom, everything was cool for like a few months. And then one of the Northerns on that yard, he got into like a one-off with the white guy. It was and there's never on those yards, there's never one-on-ones.
Yeah.
If something sporadically happens, then it happens, right? So there is actually a one-off that happened with this one Puerto Rican guy from San Francisco that was a Northerner with the white guy. And there was talks that the war that was happening up in Pelican Bay was now going to come down to New Folsom. So they locked down all the Northerns and all the whites at that time when there was this one-off that happened. And keep in mind, when I was at New Folsom, anybody that comes from Pelican Bay is considered like you have clout. You have like a certain level of schooling because back in those days, Pelican Bay was looked at as like the bar. It was like the spot, right? So when I got down to New Folsom, you know, people knew who I was. Back in those days, you know, obviously people know me as Mario Sanchez, but I actually went by the name of Chopper back in those days. That was my name.
Nice. See, that's a good nickname.
Yeah, Matt's nickname was Chainsaw.
Yeah.
As I tried to push Chainsaw, it didn't work.
So that was a little nugget because on like some of the other platforms that I've been on, I've never told what my nickname was. So I went by the name of Chopper back in those days.
How'd you get that? Somebody gave it to you, or did you push it?
I just think right out the gate in the county jail, I was getting into a lot of fights, and I mean, I'm not 6 feet tall, so I was always fighting guys that were bigger than me. And I kind of just got the name Chopper because I chop guys down in my size.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of how I got that name. Like I said, I've never mentioned this on these other interviews I've done. And so, yeah, so once again, that happened, a one-off. And so what happened was they put us on a lockdown. The one Northerner that was in charge of us, like every prison you go to, right? There's always a leader. There's a shot caller. The leader, and then there's a shot caller, there's security, and then you have the different soldiers and warriors, right? So, you know, chain of command, right? And so at New Folsom, I was always a Northerner, right? There's different gangs, like I mentioned, there's the NF, there's also the Northern structure, but I didn't join an actual prison gang. I was just considered a Northerner, right? And I actually was asked on a couple of different occasions to join the structure. Like in Corcoran, my cellie wanted to pull me. They call it pulling, right? To pull you. And you basically politely decline. Mm-hmm. You know, I would say that I'm not ready. But the whole thing with me, the whole time I was in prison, I never joined because I knew the repercussions that came along with if you dropped out. You know what I mean? Where it can be very severe. So that's the main reason I never joined like the structure when I was in prison. I was asked on a couple different occasions, one at Corcoran by my cellie who was running our block. And then even when I got up to Pelican Bay, my cellie who was on the main line, he wanted to pull me and I politely declined again. So now, you know, even though I was just considered a northerner, I was around a lot of really good dudes. I was very schooled down. You know, I had a good reputation wherever I went. And so when I got to New Folsom and this new thing was about to happen between the northerns and whites, the guy who was running the yard at that time for the northerners, he got rolled up off the yard. And what we found out was down the road, there was a snitch among the northerners that was basically telling on people because they were trying to keep the yard a certain way. They didn't want the yard to get heavily political. People were going to visits. People were getting drugs. People were doing a bunch of stuff on that yard. And they felt that if it got too hardcore political, it might jeopardize their program, their visits, their drugs, you know? So anytime they felt like there is potentially a new dude on the yard that may have been a threat or was making the yard too political,
they're getting rid of him.
They're getting rid of him. So we found that out later. So during that lockdown, they rolled up the shot caller for the northerners.
Because he's kind of pushing the whole, hey, the Pelican Bay thing may need to kind of spill into us and we might need to go to war with the whites.
Exactly.
And then these guys are all like, fuck that, we're getting in dope, we're getting in visits. Visits.
I'm getting my conjugal visits, you know?
I don't want to fuck that up.
Exactly. So you know exactly what I mean. So what happened was this guy got rolled up off the yard, and during the lockdown, we were locked down for like 2 weeks. They basically, somebody came up to my cell and they're like, "You're running the show now." They gave me the keys to the yard, and so now
did you say thank you? No,
you can't.
It's not the same thing as being asked to join.
No, I mean when they tell you like you got the keys now. You got the keys. That's not something. If I would have declined that,
you gotta go.
Then something would have potentially happened to me. You know what I mean? So here I am, 5.5 years into my prison sentence. I'm like, 25 years old. I never joined a prison gang. I never wanted that kind of responsibility. I never wanted to deal with any kind of repercussions that would come along with that kind of responsibility. I really respected what they did, and these are my people, but I also knew, once again, the repercussions would be very severe if I decided to do something else. You know what I mean? So that's why I never joined up like that. And so now I got the keys. It's up to me to make this decision. Are we going to go to war with the whites, or are we going to try to talk this out? We never talk nothing out, right? When it's time to go to war, it's time to go to war. So from my cell, there was still porters running around doing stuff in the block, right? And they're like, well, what are we going to do? And so I gave the word when they let out a block, the northerners have to rush the whites. That was a call that I made. And so once again, when you're on lockdown on the main line, they don't just let out the whole yard so they could have 100 people have a riot. They're going to let out a controlled block where they can keep it small. If something happens, it's going to be on a much smaller scale. They're not going to lose so much control, right?
This is like 20 guys at a time?
20 guys at a time, 30 guys at a time, maybe, right? Okay. Like a melee, right? So they let out another block. And as soon as the northerners came out, there's maybe 5 or 10 northerners in that block. There's maybe about 20 white guys in the block. The northerners rushed them, but also, too, some of the blacks got involved. In Sacramento during that time, they have some bloods from Sacramento that helped the northerners. So now you have the bloods from Sacramento and the northerners that got into it with the whites, and they locked everybody down again, okay? And so literally not even a week later, guess who gets rolled up off the yard?
You.
Somebody snitched on me.
Yeah.
Somebody snitched on me.
Yeah, you weren't the right replacement for this guy.
They're looking for somebody else that was just gonna, mediate.
Yeah.
They rolled me up off the yard like a week later. They're like, Sanchez, roll it up. I'm going to the hole. And here I am. You keep in mind, I had been basically, clean for going on 2 or 3 years now. I'm getting time back. I had a job. I'm trying to go home. I'd like to go home, right? And so when I got rolled up off the yard, I had a choice to make, because they roll you off the yard and they put you in these holding cells, right? And they make you just sit in these holding cells for like hours. And at that point, I made a decision that I'm going to walk away from the gang stuff, because I wanted to go home.
Yeah.
So in the eyes of my partners and the gang that I'm running with, they look at me like I'm no good or I'm a traitor.
Yeah.
But in my eyes, all I cared about was trying to get out and go home, because I already knew if I went to the hole and somebody didn't like the call I made, they could have asked me to do a cleanup or a hit, or they could have hit me if they didn't like the decision I made, or I would have just caught more time or got validated as a associate of a prison gang. So it was like a lose, lose, lose all the way around to me. And I didn't want to get maxed out or maybe even catch more time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, everybody's heard of that. There's hundreds of examples of guys that went in there with 5 or 10 years on a dope, well, at least in federal prison. I'm sure it's even worse, 10 times worse in like a state prison. Where you go in there for 5 or 10 years and you join a gang and they say, hey, you got to hit this guy, and they go and they stab him, or they get into a fight, the guy falls down, hits his head, or maybe they happen to stab him in the right spot, he dies, and now you pick up a charge and you get 20 years, and you're like, I was going to be out of prison in 4 years. Now I've got my original charge and an extra 20. Like, I'm now going to be in my 50s when I get out of prison, just for something that's fucking stupid, only because I wanted to feel safe, and I was told to do this thing, and then to ask somebody to do something like that when you're just walking in the door. Yeah. It's just, these guys they're not necessarily looking out for you. You may feel safe, but they're not necessarily making a call, because you would think some guy who's short time and young, if you were an older guy and wise and had been in that lifestyle, you would think you would have the wisdom to say, this fucking kid, he's 22 years old. Yeah. Let's keep him out of trouble. Let's get this fucking guy home. But that's not how they look at it. Yeah. Necessarily.
Yeah, and keep in mind, like you said, the age, right? Even I had 10 years. Like I was in there with guys that were like 20, 21, 22 that all had 25 to life. Yes. You know what I mean? That's the kind of yards we were on. You know what I mean? So, like I said, sitting in the holding cell, thinking, my mind's racing. I'm like, lose situation. I think right here, I'm going to walk away, and I'm going to tell the COs, like, you know what? I'm done. I want to walk away from this. So at that point, I made that decision. And like I said, now my associates or gang guys that I was running with, they're looking at me like, they call it like, you're no good now. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so from that point on, they sent me to the basically the soft yard, or the or they call it like the PC yard, right? And over there on those type of yards, you have all the gang, they call them gang dropouts, right? Yeah. And during these years, this is in 1997, it's a completely different makeup than it is now. I mean, it's 2026. I hear those type of yards, or even the California, they're all like mixed now. You know what I mean? But in those years, you can go to one of those yards and just program, do your time. So we were kind of joking about earlier, like one guy just walking around doing his time. I was that guy now. I went to this other side. I went to the other yard. And here, I didn't associate with anybody. I kept to myself. I was working out, staying myself. I was programming because I wanted to go home. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But it's not that easy, right? When you decide to make that choice, they still put you in the hole again. They leave you in the hole with a bunch of other, like, they call them dropouts or whoever, and they make you go program there to prove that you're trying to go home, or that you're just trying to program that you're not going to assault anybody, that you're not a threat. Right. And here is where, when I was in the hole there, as you know, the Menendez brothers. Oh yeah. I was in the hole with Eric Menendez. So Eric Menendez was actually on my yard, and like, I'd play handball with him. You know what I mean? And he was in the hole for like contraband. You know what I mean? But those are the type of people, like, whether it's like high profile or dropouts, those are the type of people I was around now. You know what I mean? And I forgot to tell you my Charles Manson story really quick.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask but, at the end, but go ahead.
Yeah, so real quick, going back to Manson, right? When I was in the SHU, they still give you visits, right? They escort you to the visiting room, right? You're, once again, like belly chained, and you get escorted with the few COs. And so I'm going to the visiting room, and I could see people leaving the visiting room. You know, you're literally walking by them on the track, right? And one day when I was leaving a visit, who do I see walking towards me who's going to a visit? Charles Manson. So this is like 1993, 1994, early 94 maybe. He was in the PHU, I was in the SHU, and I literally walked right by Charles Manson when I was leaving a visit, and he was going to a visit.
He's tiny, right?
He's tiny, like he's a little old man, man. He's probably like 5 feet tall, little old guy.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
I was always shocked that I was watching the documentary, and they're talking about him, you know, multiple times trying to kind of be like a pimp, but he could never keep the girls very long. And I was like, well, I mean, you're 100 pounds. You're 5'2" and 100 pounds. Like what? You know, how are you going to keep control of these chicks? You know, most of these guys do it with obviously manipulation, but partially that and violence. You're 100 pounds.
Yeah, he was a little guy. He was like, but yeah. So that's my Charles Manson story. Walking right by him, leaving a visit, and he was going to a visit.
He passed away, right?
Yeah,
he died recently.
Yeah, he passed away.
So how long are you locked up? Where is this that you go?
So I'm in New Folsom, but I'm just on an ADSEG yard now.
Okay.
I'm still in New Folsom. I'm in ADSEG. I'm in the hole. They make you program there for a few months to kind of prove yourself that you're not going to go assault anybody.
Yeah, that you didn't make it. You didn't just say it to get in there to get at somebody.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That I was going to be like a sleeper. That I was going to just go in there and hit somebody. Right. So they want you to prove yourself that you're really going to program, that you really want to change, that you're not a threat to anybody, that you're not going to be associated with any more gangs, that you really want to go that route. And so I was in the hole for a few months, and they let you go to the main line. They let you, but now it's a big yard. It's C yard, C facility, but it's everybody there is like either like a dropout or had some other type of case that, you know, they're on basically like a sensitive yard, right? So I ended up staying at New Folsom probably like another 6 months. And then they transferred me one more time. They transferred me to Mule Creek. So when I got to Mule Creek, that was considered like a soft prison. And when I got there, I really tripped out because there'd be like people laying on the grass on the yard, like sunbathing and shit. Like it's like people were just like totally chilling there. You know what I mean? It was like no gang stuff going on, no crazy things going on. Like it was like basically considered like a soft prison.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there I was like playing football, softball, soccer leagues. You know what I mean? I was working in, I think, vocational automotive. And now it was like 1988. I'm getting all this time back. I'm working. I'm not having any problems. I'm not associated with anybody. I'm only about 2 hours away from San Francisco. My family's visiting me like every weekend. My mom, my sisters. And then finally...
you have like 6 sisters. How many sisters?
I have 4 sisters. 4 sisters and 2 brothers. So...
It's a lot of visits.
It's weird. Everybody, like all my siblings came to visit me, like my duration that I was in prison.
Yeah.
But my older brother never came to visit me one time for whatever reason.
Just angry at you?
I don't know. It's weird. I actually asked him, like, how come you never came to visit me the whole time? You know what I mean? But my sisters always came. My mom would always come. And it's crazy because I had a little brother at the time and I had these nephews, and it's just crazy. I was in there almost 8 years, seeing them grow during that time. You know, they're little kids, and then by the time I'm getting out, they're taller than me. You know what I mean?
What did your brother say?
My older brother?
Yeah.
He really didn't have nothing to say. I don't think he wanted to see me like that. You know, he didn't want to see me locked up.
So it wasn't malicious. It wasn't like, fuck you.
No.
You know, okay.
He actually gave me, when I got out, he gave me a bunch of money to like kind of get going a little bit, you know, like buy some clothes and stuff like that. But anyway, I ended up getting out finally in March 25th, 2000. You know, I never forget the days. Finally got paroled, March 25th, 2000. after about 7.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when you parole, they let you go to R&R, receiving and releasing. My sisters had sent me some dress out, some nice clothes that I could wear when I leave. And so put on my dress outs early in the morning. And then at that point, you're just sitting around waiting until they say, all right, you can leave now. They walk you out. And I remember walking out of the prison. My sisters were waiting across the street for me in a car. And I remember just like, thank God I'm out of here. You know what I mean? And by this time, I'm 27 years old now.
Did you get like a halfway house, or you're just done?
Yeah, you're just done. But
it just kills me, bro.
Yeah.
The state prisons just fucking let you go.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have, luckily, you obviously had support of some kind. You know, you have a support system, but a lot of these guys who get out, they got nothing. They're going right back to the same thing.
Yeah. I actually got a friend that just finished doing 27 years. He got out in state, and they put those guys, when you did that much time, or if you were a lifer and you got out, they dropped your L, I think they put you in a halfway house now in California for like 6 months and try to help you out a little bit.
Almost all federal inmates go to a halfway house.
Yeah.
Almost all of them.
Yeah. But like for me, when I got out, they just cut you loose. And then I was on parole. They call it high control parole. So I was on high control parole, which is a little bit more stringent. I was on that for 3 years.
What is your, like, you're being released. Is your plan? What is your plan? Is your plan, because if you're, you need to have a plan. It doesn't have to work out exactly the way it needs to be fluid, but you got to have a plan. And it's like, just to get your head right, and something reasonable, because I can't tell me how many fucking guys I'm gonna get out and they're gonna be a rapper. And they're gonna start a studio, and they're gonna, or they're gonna open a restaurant. It's like, bro, you have no fucking money. You've never run a studio. You've never run any of these things. We've never worked in a restaurant. Yeah. And they have these unrealistic. But did you have kind of a plan? Like, here's what I think I'm going to start here. Do this. Do that.
Yeah. So I do really remember this visually, because I remember New Year's Eve 2000, like 12/31/99. I remember sitting, and I knew I was getting out in like 3 months, right? I remember sitting down at my desk in my cell, looking out the window, and I wrote a list. Like, I need to get a job making X amount of money so I can live a certain way. You know what I mean? I need to buy a car. I never even had a driver's license.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Never really had a lot of work experience because I went away when I was 19. And then, so I did write a list, like a game plan of stuff that I needed to do. And I tried to stick to it as best I could. But keep in mind, remember, I went away when I was 19. I got out when I was 27, and I literally did not really have any skills, like professional skills or job skills. I definitely didn't have any money, you know what I mean? Except like the money that my brother gave me or my family gave me to kind of get on my feet a little bit. But I was starting from scratch. Like I said, I didn't have any particular skills. Back in those days, there wasn't like LinkedIn and Craigslist, you know what I mean? You're literally looking in a fucking newspaper to look for a job opportunities, right? So I remember like the very, very first job I had, I found like some marketing job on some ad, right? And this is like maybe 2 or 3 weeks fresh out of prison, right? I'm living at my mom's house, 27 years old. I don't have a car. I don't have a license. I don't have shit. Okay. Starting from scratch. And I went and did like a little interview for some marketing company, and I was literally going to be working downtown San Francisco, handing out flyers on a fucking corner like a loser. Okay. That was my first job. And I'll never forget, because it's funny now. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's funny now. I can laugh at it now. But literally, that was the first job I had. So, guys that get out of prison, if you don't have any connections, if you're not educated, there's nothing glamorous about getting out of prison with no skills. And unfortunately, there's a huge percentage of guys that do that. You know what I mean? So that didn't work out. I literally did that for like half a day. Hated it. I literally walked off. I'm like, fuck this. I'm not doing this. You know what I mean? Like,
what did you expect? You were going to get a CEO position? Like, that's where you're at.
Yeah,
like,
seriously, right?
I'm cleaning toilets at a gym.
Yeah. It was a reality check. Very, very humbling reality check. And I'm like, all right, I gotta figure out something else to do, right? So I started looking in the newspaper again, looking for more jobs, and I found a company. It was a modeling and acting school in downtown San Francisco called John Robert Powers, JRP, and they were looking for a booking agent. So basically, somebody who's going to come in and make calls to book people to come in and do these appointments for people that are aspiring actors and models. Like, so our demographic was kids like they had the lower age demographic for kids that were like 12 to 18 that maybe wanted to get into like Nickelodeon and like Disney, shit like that, right? And then you had the older demographic where there was girls that were like maybe 18 to 25 that were like wanted to model. So I went in there, got a job as a booking agent. So here I was now making cold calls. I'm in a back room with like another girl. And what was cool about this job and what helped me, it allowed me to like put on a suit and a tie and feel better about myself and help my confidence, help my ego as a young man. Because keep in mind, 3 months ago, I'm sitting in a cell. So I'm trying to like navigate and like do these little things that are helping boost my self-esteem so I can continue to grow as a young man now, right? And so I did that pretty successfully for like 6 or 9 months. And basically it's sales. You're calling people on the phone. And that's when I learned that I maybe had a gift for sales and calling people. And I liked it because it was like a little challenging, but I felt like I was pretty good at talking to people. And I thought I was onto something, right? And so I did that for about 6 months. At one point I had like my own office and like I'm making a little bit of money, feeling better about myself, but I'm like, all right, what else can I do, right? So you mentioned like working at a gym. Back in those days, that's when 24-hour Nautilus had just came out back in those days, right? Which is now 24-hour fitness. 24-hour Nautilus was like this new cool gym that everybody wanted to go work out at back in like 2000, 2001, right? And so I started working at 24-hour Nautilus as a sales counselor. Now I'm selling people gym memberships and training and supplements, and I'm like grilling people every day. And now I'm doing face-to-face sales, like we're sitting down right here, pitching you, Matt, on how you're gonna get this membership. And if you work out 3-4 days a week and you start taking these supplements and maybe work with one of our trainers, you're gonna start getting buffed, Matt, and that's why you should buy this membership right now. So that's what my pitch was, right? And so I started getting good at this, you know what I mean? And I'm around a lot of good salespeople there. It's funny looking back on those years. There's about 10 guys, right? And we're all, early 20s, mid 20s, lots of high testosterone. You're working in the gym. And I'm working with these guys that I learned a lot of great sales skills from, right? Like there are some gifted, talented sales guys there, right? So I'm working at 24-hour for about, 6 months now. I remember pitching this guy one day, grilling him, like I'm pitching him hard, like, why are you going to get this? Why are you going to take these supplements? And why are you going to, get this training with one of our trainers? And I'm drilling him and I'm pitching him. And he's like, you know what? You're a pretty good salesperson. Have you ever thought about doing anything else? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I'm always trying to like improve, right? And keep in mind, Matt, I'm taking these jobs. When you fill out a job application, they ask you if you've ever been convicted of a felony in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
I would write no.
Right.
Because I was convicted of a felony 8 years ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I wasn't lying, but that's what my little loophole was in order to like find work and get jobs, right? And then as the jobs got better, I really kept that out of the way. You know what I mean? But anyway, so this guy I'm drilling on training and all this other stuff. He gave me a business card. He's like, hey, we're looking for some new salespeople. Maybe this may work for you. I work for a place called Household Finance, HFC. And he was like an account executive there. Gave me his card. I called HFC. And within like a month or two later, I was hired. I got a job as an account executive, and that's where I started getting training on becoming an account executive or selling personal loans, home equity lines of credit, and first and second mortgages. Keep in mind, I didn't know anything about any of this stuff, right? But I had the energy. I knew how to talk. They could mold me and train me to be a good little HFC worker, and that's what they were looking for, right? Somebody that was hungry. I was hungry.
So you're actually like, you're a loan officer.
Yeah.
Okay. So we used to have the account executives were typically what we called account executives, were the people that would work for like, Countrywide, and they would come out to the brokers' offices and they would pitch their products, but they didn't actually close the loans. But you're an account
executive in the office,
but you're
actually,
like a loan officer.
But I did that later, and I'll get to that. I did that later. So that was like my first step into the loan world. They called it account executive, but yeah, you could call it a loan officer too, right?
Right.
So I actually stayed at HFC for about a year. Things went pretty well. I learned a lot, but I was always like, fresh out of prison. I'm hungry. I'm always trying to like maybe get a new job every 6 months to a year to like grow and, get more, make more income and get more responsibility. So that's what my mindset was, right? And so I worked at HFC for about a year. I then went to go work for a mortgage broker in South San Francisco. And I went to go work for this mortgage broker, and that's where I got introduced to the wholesale industry, like the other stuff you're talking about with like the wholesale reps that would come into the office, right? And so I was working with the mortgage broker. I wasn't licensed, but I was getting familiar with the wholesale business, right? Because as you know, in lending, you have the retail business, you have the wholesale business, you have the depository banks, you have the mortgage brokers. The lending space is very big, right? There's different roles.
So to work for a lender and be a loan officer or an account executive, you don't have to be licensed in Florida, but because I don't know how it is in California. But the moment you become a broker where you're brokering loans to multiple different lenders, that's when you do have to be licensed in Florida. Well, that's how it used to be. Who knows how it is now? Did you have to get licensed at that point? You said you're not licensed.
Right.
When you became the broker, is that how it works in California? Or no, you still don't have to be licensed.
So there is a main broker in the office, and she had a license, and we would do everything under her license. Okay. So that's how that worked. And back in those days in California, as a loan officer or whatever, nobody needed a license. That didn't come along years later till they came out with the whole Patriot Act stuff, the Dodd-Frank law. Yeah, that came years later. But so during those years, I didn't have a license. I didn't need a license. I was actually helping them sell homes. So actually sold property through the broker's license. And I was also funding loans as a loan officer too.
Okay.
Did that for about a year, learned more about the business. And during that time, as you mentioned, like these account executives would come into our office and pitch us on all their different bank products. I'm like, I think I want to do that. They seem like they have a cool job. They don't work in an office. They're in their car driving around all day, meeting people, shaking hands, schmoozing people. I think I can do that.
Yeah, they show up with the they would show up with the bagels and cream cheese or donuts. They would take the manager to lunch. Like it seemed it was much more fun than just sitting at the desk talking on the phone.
Exactly. So I met a lot of bank reps during that time with the whole schmoozing thing, and I'm like, I think I want to try to do that. Yeah. So while I was working at the broker's office, I started applying to different wholesale banks. And during that time, there is a new bank that I kind of targeted in Walnut Creek. They were called Oakmont Mortgage. And they became Own It Mortgage years later.
You know who Oakmont sounds like? It makes me think of The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, that was Stratton Oak.
Stratton Oak. Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We partied like that. We partied like that years later. But so I sent out an application to this one company, my resume. I kept sending my I'm like a very persistent person, right? I remember sending my resume to these guys like maybe 3 times over like a 2-month period. They finally called me. brought me in for an interview, got the job. Now I'm that wholesale rep that's going to brokers' offices, schmoozing them, getting their loans, taking them back to my bank, and we're funding the deals. So that started going pretty well. I mean, this is 2002 now, 2003 now, okay, 2003, right at the beginning of the whole subprime mortgage era. I went from making maybe, $5,000 a month at HFC to Oakmont. Now I'm making like 10 grand a month, which is, pretty good money back then, and
120,000 a year.
Yeah. I mean, back in those days, that was a lot of money,
In Florida, that's a lot of money now.
Yeah.
You know, if you could make 10 grand a month in Florida, you're fucking kicking ass. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, 10 grand in California probably doesn't go a long way. But anyway, so Oakmont started working out. I'm funding deals. I'm learning the ropes. Back in those days, they would give me a list of brokers from like San Francisco to San Jose, which is like a 50-mile radius. And I would have like maybe a list of 50 brokers. It's like, you just got to go meet them and talk to them and build that rapport so I can take these loans back to my bank and we would fund these deals. So as time went on and Oakmont Mortgage became Own It Mortgage, now I'm like rolling. Now I'm funding, $5, 10, 15, $20 million a month in loans. At my peak, I was making about $100,000 a month, as a lender, as a wholesale rep, as an account executive. So I was like one of the top guys in my office. I'm funding like on average, a good month, 10, 12 million. On a great month, I'm funding 20 million a month. We're rocking and rolling, you know what I mean? And everything's great. Making a lot of money. By now I bought a house. I have, nice cars, toys. I'm partying with the boys. I'm taking trips. Started partying hard, like we talked about the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
I got into use and blow.
Right.
Okay. Was always at the strip club, just doing, what comes with making a lot of money, right? The crazy lifestyle. When you're a young guy and you're single, the womanizing, the strip clubs, traveling, we were having a lot of fun.
Well, your parents must be thrilled though. That I mean, obviously they don't know that aspect of it, but they're like, this fucking guy, this kid was in fucking prison.
Yeah.
And now he's pulling up in a Mercedes.
Yeah.
Like, what has happened? Like, what a turnaround.
Yeah, I remember like 2005, I bought my first house. I bought like a 5-bed, 4-bath house with the pool. Had a big party. All my family members came by, and my older brother, who has a master's degree, and worked in Silicon Valley and did well for himself too. But like they came into my house, and I had the fat pad, and I remember his wife was like, I should get into doing loans. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that easy, but obviously the lifestyle and everything that I had, my family, of course, they were very happy for me, right? And, I was always taking care of my mom, giving my mom money, helping my mom, helping my sisters, helping everybody. You know what I mean? So it was a good time. But once again, this is now 2005, 2006, 2007. This is when the market starts changing. The market starts collapsing, and by now it's the end of 2006. I think 2005, I made almost 800 grand that year. So I was rolling. For somebody 6 years out of prison. You know what I mean? And, but also I wasn't investing. I wasn't saving. I was just like blowing through this money. You know what I mean? Like a lot of young people unfortunately do. And then on top of that, I'm partying, I'm drinking. I got a couple DUIs, messing with the blow, have all the girls. And so at the end of 2006, I remembered with Own It Mortgage, something weird was happening with the company. Like all of a sudden we quit funding deals. Our main investor was Merrill Lynch. And apparently a lot of the loans that we were selling to Merrill Lynch were coming back as bad loans. There is all this fraud going on. So that's when we find out all these brokers are doing a lot of fraud. And we had a batch of like $500 million in loans that Merrill Lynch was like, we're not taking these off your hands. You keep them. And our company was not in the business of servicing loans.
Right.
We were selling these loans to the secondary market, as you know. And so just like that, this amazing job I had where I was making all this money, the CEO did a conference call with the entire company. It was like 2,000 employees. And it's like, sorry, we're closing our doors. Like, it's over, just like that. So that happened at the end of 2006. And now I'm in scramble mode because I didn't have a job. You know, I was making anywhere from like 60 to 100 grand a month during that time period. And now I have like these mortgages and car notes and all these other responsibilities, and I didn't have a job. I ended up hooking up with another lender in 2007 and trying to make that work as a wholesale lender, but it just wasn't the same. The market was collapsing. You had the whole mortgage collapse, the financial markets. You had, you know, this whole recession that we had. And so 2007, 2008, 2009 were like really tough years for me. You know, by the time 2009, 2010 rolled around, I'd moved back into my mom's house. I'd like lost everything. Okay. I was doing blow. I was drinking. Like I went backwards. Like I was really kind of down on my luck, but I also shot myself in the foot with everything that I was doing wrong. You know what I mean? And so 2011, 2012, I actually went back and I started working at Wells Fargo Home Mortgage. That wasn't the same. The business just wasn't the same. Now we have all these new laws. The Dodd-Frank law came out. It was hard to get loans funded. You know what I mean? Funding deals, it wasn't fun anymore. You know, when I was doing loans in 3, 4, 5, and 6, it was fun. It was a party. We were making a lot of money. But now with all these new restrictions and regulations and home values had dropped, it wasn't fun anymore. So I went after that to go work for a startup called Trulia.com. Trulia.com was acquired by Zillow years later. And this was they called this like a prop tech company. I was one of their top salespeople. We took the company public. I was making good money. I was still making like the low hundreds. But I mean, I went from making 800 grand to 120. It's not the same. So I always felt like I was chasing that carrot, like I was trying to find lightning in a bottle again. You know what I mean? So I kind of relapsed again, 2013, 2014, doing a lot of blow. I wasn't working. I was literally living at my mom's, really down on myself. And I came up with this amazing idea that, you know what, let me go rob a bank.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I came
You're
up.
still making $10,000 a month.
I know, but it just, I felt like I wanted to go, if I can go rob a bank and maybe get like, let's just say, you know, 20 to 50 grand, that can hold me over and I can maybe go find another job. So this is how fucked up I was in the head that's what my plan was. Okay. From being like, you know, basically being a millionaire and having everything I wanted to now a low point where I'm going to go rob a bank. Okay. So I remember by my mom's house, there is this Bank of the West. It was probably like a half a mile away. I would always drive by and, you know, banks close at 5 o'clock. So I'd drive by like around 4:45, 4:50. It was always dead. This branch was dead. So I'm like, I'm going to go hit this bank. So I went and drove, cased out the block, parked my car here. I could walk in the side door, run out the bank, make a U-turn, skate off, and get away. That's what my plan was. So I went and went into this bank on it was Black Friday 2014. So this is 2014, Black Friday, right before Christmas. That's how like the fall from grace from like 2007 to 2014. This is where I was at now. Okay. And I'm going to go hit this bank. I go in with a ball cap, I'm wearing like a parka jacket pulled up to here, so you can really like just see like my eyes, right? And I'm gonna give the teller a note. I don't have a weapon. I don't have anything. I'm gonna give them a note, and that's what I did. I went in there. I parked my car, walked in the side door. Nobody was in the branch. I gave him the note. Gave the teller a note. The teller's freaking out, running around, grabbing cash from that was right there, readily available. Put all the money in a bag, gave it to me, and I ran out. Well, I don't run out, but I walked out. As soon as I hit the door, I ran to my car, jumped in my car, did a U-turn, sped off, and I went to Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. Golden Gate Park has underground parking. I drove down there, and I just sat in my car for like 2 hours. Like, the fuck did I just do? You know what I mean? I robbed a bank.
Right.
And I counted the money, only had like 12 grand. It wasn't a lot of money, but I sat there with this money and I was like, that was really easy.
You became emboldened.
So right. I said, you know what? It's only 12 grand. Let me do it one more time. And then I'll go like look for another job and like do something. This is how I was literally thinking, man. And it's funny now, and like I've done so much self-work over the last 10 years, 12 years since then. But I can look back and I could honestly say during that time period, 2014, 2015, I hit rock bottom as a man for me to go do something like that. You know what I mean? Like all that confidence I had, all that ego I had, I went backwards, you know? And so I went to go case out another bank. I found a city bank kind of in the neighborhood, like a mile away. And it was a more busy neighborhood, but I had focused on this bank. I kept going by for a couple of days, checking out the neighborhood, going there at 4:50. And I said, all right, I'm going to go hit this bank. Same MO, park my car over here, make a U-turn, take off. I had the same plan as the one I just did, right? So remember, I'm building a pattern now with the police. I'm doing this on a Friday as well, another Friday, the next, like 2 Fridays down the road. And I remember parking near Citibank. And I remember standing in the street looking in the sky. And I'm looking in the sky like, if I get caught, they're going to give me at least 15 years and I'm going to be fucking done. And I had a little dog back then. Like my little dog was like my prized possession. I had a little half Yorkie, Yorkie Maltese. It was a Morkie. That was like my prized possession, dude. Like my dog. I said, if I go do this robbery and I get caught, I'm never going to see my dog again. And I had this self-talk right before I went into the bank. Went into the bank, 4:50, 4:55. I'm in the bank by myself. Right when I hand the teller the note, I see somebody walk in the bank behind me. I see the reflection in the glass. And it spooked me. But I already gave the teller the note. So at that point, I decided, let me just leave. I walked out because I wasn't going to stand there and do a robbery where I got some dude standing right behind me. Right. You know what I mean? So I walk out the bank, and it's a little hill. I ran out the bank, and as I'm running out the bank, I'm taking off my coat because obviously when you rob somebody or do a robbery, you want to change your clothes or look different or whatever, right? I take off my coat, run up the hill, jump in my car. I could already hear sirens nearby. I jam out of the area. I park like maybe 2 miles away, and I'm changing my clothes, getting out of my clothes, take off my hat. I'm looking for my cell phone. I can't find my cell phone.
You did not leave your cell phone in the bank.
So I'm looking all over my car. I can't find my phone, and I'm like, fuck, did I drop my phone? So when I was taking off my coat, when I was running out the bank, I had like a little pocket right here.
Yeah.
It fell out. It must have fell out.
Oh my God.
I dropped my phone at the scene of the crime. I know it sounds horrible. That's like.
Did you leave the note too?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the note, you had gloves or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So drop my phone. I'm like, I need to go back and see if I could find my phone. Because now I already look completely different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Changed my clothes. I drove back to the bank, parked my car, and I walk around and I'm like, there's cops everywhere. But I'm looking on the ground to see if in the area, right? I'm looking for my phone. I can't find my phone. I'm like, fuck. You know what I mean? So I just left. I took off. I went back to my mom's house. I'm freaking out. Because they're probably going to find my phone. If they grab my phone, it's not locked. I had like a old Samsung phone back in those days, right? So if they open up my phone, they're going to see all my pictures and probably make a connection, right? So I basically started like telling my mom, hey, can you call my phone, block your number, call my phone and see if somebody answers the phone. Sure enough, my mom blocked her house phone. She called my phone. Somebody answered it. It was a cop. And I was like, fuck, man, they got my phone. And she's like, my mom played it off. My mom was like, oh, I think I dropped my phone there. Can you hold it for me? I'm going to come get it. So my mom was kind of playing along like she was going to help me, right? But my mom was scared. I'm freaking her out because I'm all, yelling, screaming, freaking out. I'm going to get caught. I'm going to go back to prison. And so I asked my mom, can you please go over there and see if they'll give you the phone? So my mom left for like a couple hours. And I don't think she ever went over there. I think during that time, she freaked out and called one of my sisters. And my sister said, don't get involved. He's going to get you in trouble. Turn his ass in. So sure enough, 2 days later, there's a knock at the door. I never got my phone. Never got my phone. Like 2 days later, there's a knock on the door. And I go to the front of the house and I'm like going to look out the window to see who's at the door, right? And by the time I go to the front of the house and I'm looking out the window, I hear somebody already opening the door. So I come out the room and it's a cop opening the door. My mom had gave the cops the keys to the house to come get me. And I walked around and it was a cop. He's like, pulled out his gun, freeze, laid me down the same way I got laid down when I was a kid in 1993, 92. Now it's 2014, 22 years later, same situation on my porch of my parents' home. I got arrested. And now they're like, they took me downtown again, San Francisco, California. They take me to the brand new jail. Now I was in the old jail. Now it's 20 years later. They're taking me into the new jail. During that walk, the cops talking shit to me, robbery task force. Oh, you're gonna go away for a long time, blah blah blah. And I'm like, fuck you. I already. This ain't my first rodeo. I'm being a tough guy. You know what I mean? This ain't my first rodeo. And so they take me up to robbery detail, cuff me to the chair, lock the door, and leave me in there for, hours. And hours later, two dudes walk into the room, sit down in front of me, pull out their badge, FBI. I robbed a bank, or I was trying to rob a bank.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's federal.
You did use a note.
I did use a note.
Thank
so
God.
and the first one was a small amount of money. The second one I didn't get anything. Or it was botched. So they try to ask me some questions. Of course, I didn't have anything to say. And they ended up booking me later on, hours later. And now I'm in jail. Here I am. Back in jail. At this time now, I'm trying to think, I was 42 years old. Okay. And I'm back in jail. I'm the old guy in jail now.
Mm.
When I came in when I was 19, I remember I'd look at these older guys and I thought they were fucking losers. Now I'm that fucking loser. And I'm sitting in jail. And Once again, I got a court-appointed attorney. Her name was Rebecca Young. To this day, she's like a mother figure to me. She's like one of my best friends. Still amazing criminal defense attorney, helping out a lot of people in the San Francisco area. And so she was my attorney, and she was like just very nurturing. She's like, you got to get out of this jail. You got to bail out somehow, pull the money together. You got to bail out, because if you don't get out of custody, they're going to make you go through a speedy trial, and you're going to go to prison. You're going to go back to prison. If you get out of custody and fight this case from the streets, then maybe you have a chance. Okay?
Is this federal?
No. So the feds never picked it up, because it was minor. To them, it was minor.
Okay.
So the feds didn't pick it up. So keep in mind, I'm in the county jail now for like 5 months. And during these 5 months, I sobered up now. I start thinking differently. I'm like, I got to get out of here. I got to somehow bail out of here. And that way I have a fighting chance from the streets to get out of here, to at least fight this case. So I'm in the county jail for like 5 months. And keep in mind, I'm like in a little tank in the county jail. So in the county jail where I was at in 850 Bryant on the 7th floor, I'm in a tank with like 5 other dudes, right? So there's 2 bunk beds, 2 bunk beds, 2 bunk beds. There's a phone in our cell. And, no one's fighting over the phone or anything like that, because everyone in our tank, we're cool. But I'm always on the phone trying to call people, call family. No one's taking my calls. My family won't talk to me. My family cut me off. Somehow I get a hold of like my nephew. I'm like, go in my old Facebook, because I don't have Facebook. I deleted it, but you can still like put in my password and get into it, right? Go into my old Facebook, get my ex-girlfriend Janelle's, send her a message. Tell her I need help. So my nephew goes into my old Facebook, messages Janelle, hey, Janelle, Mario needs help. He's in jail. She gives my nephew her number. I call Janelle and I'm like, look, I need you to help. This is where I'm at. I need to get out of here. I need to raise some money to get out of jail. I need you to reach out to this friend, that friend, this friend, that friend, put the money together. And then I need to find a co-signer so I can get out of jail. So that took some time, right? It didn't happen overnight, right? That probably took like at least a month to piece the money together. So I crowdfunded my bail from like 10 different people.
How much was that?
10 grand, because my bail was 100 grand, but in San Francisco, 10%.
Yeah. Okay.
So put that together. So I had the money. I was able to put the money together through all these different friends. I had friends that chipped in, right? But I didn't have a co-signer. And so even if you have the money to bail out, you still need a co-signer that's willing to put their name on the line for you to get out of bail. And if you don't have a co-signer, you cannot bail out. So that took a minute to work out. I had asked Janelle. She's like, no, I'm not going to co-sign. I try to reach out to a couple friends. They're like, no, I can't do that. I'm not willing to do that. I'm not going to put my name on the line for you. And then I thought to myself, you know what? Who can I reach out to? I have these cousins that I thought about, my cousin Monica and my cousin Eli. I'm like, let me call them. Let me see if they'll help me. And sure enough, Janelle called them. They're like, hey, Mario's in jail. He needs help. He needs a co-signer. Will you help him out? Will you be his co-signer? And they're like, sure, no problem. So now I had my co-signer. And they co-signed for me, posted bail. I got out of jail. And now here I was again. 2015, May 2015 is when I got out. But now I have nowhere to live. My family's not talking to me. I'm like in a bad position. And I have no money again. I lost everything. Lost my dog. Never saw my dog again. Lost my car. Lost my place. Lost everything. Right? So here I am again, square one. But I'm 42 now. Okay? But also too, this was like mentally and emotionally, I'm telling myself, if I don't fix this, if I don't get this right, I'm done. Like my life's over. You know what I mean? That's how I feel. So it was extreme desperation that I had, but also like extreme motivation to change my ways and get my life back on track for good. Okay. So I had a friend in Vegas, a good friend of mine named Tony, who was working on a film about his own life. Mind you, he was fighting his own federal case at the time too. This is my buddy. And he's like, come out to Vegas, lay low here. You can help me work on this film. We ended up making a short film about his life with the rapper G-Eazy. I don't know if you're familiar with the rapper G-Eazy. Pretty big name.
Yeah.
We made a short film. It came out a couple years later. It went on the film festival circuit. They even did it up in, what's that place in Utah? Did they do the film? Sundance. We had the director went up to Sundance, pitched the film. So we made a successful short film while I was out on bail and he was fighting his case. He ended up going to federal prison like a year later. I ended up moving back to San Francisco. And I had nothing in San Francisco at this point, right? Because like my whole family disowned me. I'm still fighting my case, just waving time. My lawyer is like, you need to leave San Francisco because if you don't, you're going to fall back into your old bad habits with your friends. You're going to start doing drugs again. You start drinking again. And at this point, I was like not doing drugs anymore. And so at that point, 2016, April 2016, almost 10 years to this day, I said, you know what? I'm going to go to LA. I'm going to try to get into this film business that we just made this film and I have nothing to lose. So I literally drove down to LA with like 4 suitcases. I bounced around in different Airbnbs for like a couple of months. Got a job selling gold at a gold company. That didn't work out. I then a few months later got a job working at like a marketing company. Did that for like 6 months. I was making money, but I was just like barely getting by. You know what I mean? And so then I said, you know what? Let me get back into the loan business. I started working for a mortgage broker again, worked there for about a year, got settled, I got back on my feet. So now I'm back in LA fighting a case that I would still go back to San Francisco for like every couple of months because I had to go to court, waving time. And now that I'm out of custody, I'm not like important to the courts. You know, they have a bunch of people in custody that they're trying to prosecute.
Right.
You know, and now I'm getting like letters from my different employers, like character reference letters that Mario's working here, he's doing good. And so things are I'm rebuilding my life. I'm getting back on track. Right around 2017 or 18, I got a job as a manager at a loan modification office. We're doing loan mods, and I'm managing a team of like 5 to 10 different reps, and I'm making good money now, and I'm rolling. And then bought another Mercedes. I got my own place again, and I'm doing good again. And most importantly is I'm sober. I'm not doing drugs. I still go out and have a few drinks here and there, but nothing crazy, right? And so now I'm like totally on the straight and narrow. I'm working, I'm making money, still going to court. This is like 3 years already go by. And I'm still, going to court. And it's weird. Like I would go to court, wave time. How are you doing, Mr. Sanchez? You're working? How's work going? Good. Keeping your nose clean? Yes. All right, we'll see you in 3 months. They're just letting me wave this time. It was crazy.
Could do that forever.
Yeah.
More than happy to do that forever. Yeah.
So that's what went on. So then right after that, COVID hit. So COVID around 2020 or whatever, 21, my business that I was working at, business really slowed down.
Yeah.
And now the world was obviously changing. People started working remote environment. And so I'm like, you know what? My business here has really slowed down. I want to look at doing something different. I started like applying to all these other jobs. I actually got recruited to go work at another mortgage bank called American Advisors Group. They're a reverse mortgage bank. They wanted to hire me to become a sales manager, but I had to go get licensed. So, mind you, now it's like 2020, 2021. I got recruited to go work at this mortgage bank. I'm working from home. I went to go work for AAG. They give you like a $25,000 bonus after 6 months and another $25,000 bonus after a year on top of my $120,000 salary plus commissions that I'm making. So here we are. I'm literally, I got licensed. They also paid for my licensing. I passed the national mortgage license. I had an NMLS license. I'm a licensed mortgage banker fighting a bank robbery case this whole time. Okay. Now, keep in mind, it's 2021. The markets are going crazy again. Now, I think that's when they had like the first crypto crash. Interest rates went up. The company started losing a lot of money. They started doing mass layoffs. They laid off like 500 people from our bank. And keep in mind, we're the number one reverse mortgage lender in the country, okay? Tom Selleck is our number one spokesperson, okay? If you see those commercials.
I've seen the commercial.
That's who I was working
That's
for.
funny.
And so they're like, Mario, we're going to have to either let you go or demote you because we have 30 managers. We don't need 30 sales managers anymore. I'm managing a team of like 10 loan officers. We're rolling. We're producing every month. I'm making good money. I thought this was like going to be my last job. Like I was rolling again. But still fighting my case. And now they're saying we're either going to demote you or we're going to lay you off. They said, if we demote you, you're going to be a loan officer now. And you got to get licensed in this state, that state, this state, and that state. Like I got to get multiple licenses, right? Because as a sales manager, I was managing a team of loan officers. I didn't have any interaction with clients. I wasn't selling anything.
Right.
Okay. But now as a loan officer, I'm going to be receiving social security numbers. I'm going to be doing applications. So the laws are different. Once I started applying for all these different licenses for different states, every state has different regulations. They did an FBI background check on me. Bingo. That's when my whole history came up from what I went to prison for in 1993. Also, this pending case that I just beat, that came up. And so
that you beat?
Yeah, so what happened was right before I took this loan modification job, right before I took this job at AAG in the reverse mortgage, it had been like 6.5 years. It was 2020. There's an election in San Francisco, a new DA, district attorney. His name is Chesa Boudin. You can look him up. He was one of these rehabilitation DAs, they call like the woke DAs that wants to really rehabilitate people and give people a chance. He knew my attorney. My attorney said, look, my client, he's been out of custody now, 6 years, clean. He's been going to substance abuse therapy, alcohol abuse therapy for years now. I did that for stably employed. Look at his income. Look at his pay stubs. Look at his W-2s. Look at his 1099s. He's doing well. Give him a chance. Let him, walk away, credit for time served, and give him a chance. Keep in mind this DA, Chesa, his own dad is still in prison to this day. His dad went to prison for murder, bank robberies years ago. Okay. So Chess is all about helping the little guy, giving people a chance. And ironically enough, they actually impeached him too, like a year or two later. Like they got him out of office, right? They had a recall on him and got him out of office. But before that happened, he gave me a chance and let me go.
He just dismissed the whole case?
Dismissed the whole case, credit for time served. I actually gave a big old speech to the judge when I got out, talking about how I changed, how I rebuilt myself internally and externally, and I'm on the road to good now. They let me go, and then I got hired at AAG, and that's how that happened. But anyway, the FBI background check, they found me, they found out about my background, and they suspended me. And within like 2 weeks, they fired me. So that's when, around 2020, 22, that's when I decided, you know what? All this shit that has happened over the last 30 plus years, I'm going to write a book about it. So from 2022 to like 2024, that's when I started writing my book about everything that I just kind of went through with you. And that's where the whole relentless mindset things come from, because I never gave up on myself. I changed my ways. The whole relentless mindset was born in jail when I was down on my luck and I thought my life was over. It's like, I gotta have this relentless attitude from now on. How are we gonna get out of this situation? And so I wrote this book now that hopefully will be out by the end of the first quarter, called Relentless Mindset. Tired of hiding my past. And the whole purpose of the book is basically sharing all this now with the public, because I've been working in corporate America essentially for the last 25 years. Nobody knows about my criminal background, and I'm tired of hiding it. So that's what I'm doing now.
I mean, I've written many books, unless it's a bestseller, and even then, you know, I mean,
right?
It's like, what are you doing for
So
a living? Sorry.
So over the last, when I lost my job at AAG, I took a year off. I took some time off and had money saved. And also that's when I had some downtime to write the book. And then I actually went back to go work for a home builder. I was working for a home builder for about a year and a half called Circa Homes. But we got laid off there too, because when Trump came in with all the tariffs, we were doing all of our manufacturing overseas.
Yeah.
The tariffs really crippled the company. We got laid off there. And now I'm actually back at the loan modification office, running that office again. So ironically enough, a lot of people are, losing their jobs again. People are having struggles keeping their homes. So my day job, I help people stay in their homes. But on the back burner is pushing my book, pushing my merch. I also want to hopefully develop this for a series or even a film. I'd love to do a documentary about everything that I've done. And I still have the film bug. We're also the short film that we did.
Yeah.
We're trying to turn that into a feature film. We already did it as a short film where we did that successfully. We're trying to get funding to do that as a feature film or even as a series. I still live in LA. I've been living in LA now for almost 10 years. So that's what I'm doing now with myself, along with the real estate stuff.
Where's your buddy that you did the film with?
He's back in Vegas and he's doing great.
Okay.
He flips houses for a living and he does great. And so we're back together. I actually just saw him for New Year's. So really good friend of mine, one of my best friends. He's out of federal custody. I beat my case, and now I'm just really trying to make this book stuff work and still continue doing some film stuff too.
Is the book on Amazon?
It will be. It will be like on Amazon and stuff like that. It's not out yet. It's not out yet, but I'm trying to get it done by the end of Q1.
Okay. I mean, can you do pre-sales? Or it's not even
So
up?
I've done some pre-sales.
Oh, okay.
I've done some pre-sales. Obviously, coming on platforms like this will help me continue to do that. And thank you for, of course, having me today. But trying to do pre-sales. But, ideally, I mean, when I moved to LA 10 years ago, I'm like, I came to this town to somehow make a film. I made a short film. I really want to make a feature film or do a series. Obviously, streaming is so big now. But I think between my story and my friend's story, we have something. We just got to get it in the hands of the right people.
How do people get in touch with it? Like, because if they wanna buy the book or buy or do a pre-sale or something, do you have like a website?
Yeah,
or?
My website is relentless-mindset.com. So www.relentless-mindset.com. There you'll see my story. You can see some of my merch. You can see the pre-sales for my book. And then also to my Instagram is THEE, Mario Sanchez. They can find me there. And I'm just really trying to push my story out there so people can become familiar with who I am, learn about my story, and then, like I said, ideally turn this into a series or film.
Hey, you guys, I appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, the bell, so you get notified of videos just like this. Also, you guys, if you want to get a hold of Mario, we are going to leave all of his links in the description box. You can go there, click on it. You can get in touch with him. You can do a pre-order for the book. Once again, I want to thank everybody for watching. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, you can go to our website, which we will also leave in the description box. You can go to the website. You can click on the Be a Guest. You can fill out a form, leave a short video, and we will get back with you. Thank you very much. See ya.